Happy Friday Eve. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Of course, thank you for joining us. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That's Carlene Bragg.
Hi.
That's the first time in a long time, maybe ever, if I've said like Nick Sturdivant on the show.
Really?
I feel like I haven't
Like
said,
you introducing yourself?
Yeah, I feel like I say Nick and that's Carlene.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I just realized that.
In
But
case people don't know, Nick's last name is Sturdivant.
it's right there at the bottom
It's right on
of
the screen.
How are you doing? And I will say it's been a while since it's just been us here in the studio.
Yes, it has. It's good. It's good. It's good to be back.
Good to be good.
Nice to be back in the chair.
And she's steering the ship today.
Yep.
Carlene, you catch Carlene 9 to 11.
That's true.
But she's back here. I mean, you can catch her on 12:30
Yeah,
to 3.
I'm here and there and everywhere.
She's here. She's kind of running all over the place, doing multiple things. But look, we have a lot going on. It's been a busy day. We talked about it right before we got on the show. Like, man, it's been a busy week. It's been a busy day. We're talking about everything from weather, not only here in North Carolina, but New Mexico, Texas. So let's start there with Texas. And I do want to mention weather here. We are weather alert today. Brittany Van Voorhees will be here in just a moment. So hang on. Brittany will be here. She's just wrapping up midday. So she's going to be here in the seat right across from me, giving us an update on our forecast. But let's get over to Texas, where we will continue to get updates out of Texas. That devastating flooding there, at least 120 people killed. Authorities confirmed that today, and that's across 6 counties, including those of 60 adults and 36 children in the Kerr County. Still, 173 people missing. Wow. Again, truly a tragedy over there. Let's get over to Kerrville, Texas, where they gave us an update in case you missed it. Let's take a listen in.
From state, local, and federal agencies working to reunite victims with families. 10 states have sent specially trained teams to our community, and 2 more states are en route. As I know many of you have reported, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House are strongly committed to helping our community. And we're grateful that they're making our recovery a priority in the upcoming special legislative session. Our city of Kerrville and Kerr County leadership are committed to a transparent and full review of processes and protocols. The special session is going to be a starting point for that work, but our entire focus since day one has been on rescue and reunification, which leads me to our latest report. As of 8 a.m. this morning, there have been 96 confirmed deaths, 60 adults and 36 children. The number of missing remains at 161, and there remain 5 campers and 1 counselor from Camp Mystic among the missing. If family members had reported a loved one missing and they've returned safely, we ask that you notify us through kerrvillemissing@dps.texas.gov or call 830-258-1111. Again, that's kerrvillemissing@dps.texas.gov or call 830-258-1111. Additionally, the state of Texas, FEMA, the Small Business Administration have opened a disaster recovery center here in Kerrville for those who have been affected by the storms. It's currently open at the First Baptist Church here in Kerrville at 625 Washington Street. It'll be open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. The Individual Assistance Program can provide financial support for things like medical and dental assistance, vehicle damage, housing, child care, and replacing essential items, even for non-residents who were impacted by the floods. You can visit disasterassistance.gov, use the FEMA app, or call 1-800-621-3362. And again, that's disasterassistance.gov. Use the FEMA app or call 1-800-621-3362. And in closing, I'd like to say one more time, on behalf of our unified command here in Kerr County, how appreciative we are for the help since this tragedy took place. People from all over Texas, all over the country, continue to show their support in so many ways, and we are thankful. And with that, I'll take a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Morgan Chesky, NBC News. Did the inability of police radios to communicate directly with county radios hamper rescue or recovery efforts as those waters rose?
I don't have any information to that point. Yes, sir.
Jason Allen, CBS News. Given that you still have people who live in this area, what's different? What changes have been made to ensure you get heavy rain again a week from now, a month from now, you don't wind up in the same situation?
I think that's an important question, and as we are aware, we've been very weather alert throughout the entirety of this, and that's something that we're going to be looking at. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Anth Johns, News 4 San Antonio. What can you tell us about the current search area, how large it is, how much of it has been searched, and how exactly does the grid system work for something like this?
Say the last part of your question again, please.
How does the grid system work for a disaster like this?
Okay, so the grid system, I'm not a search and rescue recovery expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but it is a methodical search which ensures that every area in an area to be searched is covered and searched and that no stone is left unturned. Unfortunately, I don't have a exact number of how many miles of river that we've searched or how many people who have been out there. I just don't have that information for you, but I'm happy to follow up.
Sir, last question. This will be last question.
Yes. Are there messages that we as a collective media are not getting out there? For example, are you hindering some searches? What can we tell people who want to come up with big equipment to help search or remove debris? Hasn't that been a problem?
I don't want to say it's been a problem because we're so grateful for the amount of people who want to come to this community to help. And we've had people from all over the state and all over the country volunteer their services and say, I have a front end loader, I have a boat, I have this. Groups and individuals. But it's important that we have certified professional search teams out there right now. We have compiled a database of volunteers who have made themselves available. And if and when that time comes that we are able to call upon them, we will be calling upon them. In the short term, I believe that all of our basic needs are being met, both through the federal and state response and the support that we've been getting, as well as this community rising up in a really unprecedented way to show their support for all of us here. Thank you very much.
We've all got plans and ideas.
All right, so that was a press conference from earlier from Kerrville, Texas, getting an update. They've been doing these updates pretty frequently, just, again, giving us an idea of what's happening there on the ground. Again, I just want to reiterate, at least 120 people killed across 6 counties, those including 60 adults, 36 children, in Kerr County. So we want to check in with Jay Gray from NBC. He's been on the ground there covering this flooding since the very beginning. We'll send it over to NBC's Jay Gray with the latest there in Texas.
Well, day 7 of the rescue, the recovery, the search here in the Texas Hill Country. The death toll again climbing. At least 120 have died as a result of the catastrophic flooding here. More than 150 still missing, and volunteers continuing to pour into this area to try and help those in need. Mercy Chefs, one of those groups that's doing just that, cooking meals for those who have been displaced, for all of the first responders who have gathered here. And it's people directly involved with this area that are volunteering to help out, including the father of some campers at Camp Mystic who were in the camp just a week before the flooding.
It's hard on them. It's very hard on them. I mean, they could have been there. It was hard on me when I thought about, oh gosh, that could have been my kids. So I'm just thankful that they're where they are and they were with us. And I'm thankful for everybody that got to get their kids home, and just praying for the people that their kids aren't coming home.
Yeah, the help really needed here. They serve between 4,000 and 5,000 meals a day here, already more than 14,000 since the flooding began. And look, they say they're going to be here for as long as necessary. This is an area, as we go through the search and recovery, that's going to need some help for a long time. That's the latest from here in Ingram, Texas. I'm Jay Gray.
All right, so that was our guy Jay Gray from NBC. He's there in Texas covering all things flooding. So take a look at this. This is how you can help the folks there. All right, so our parent company Tegna is collecting donations for those impacted by the Texas floods. Just take out your phone right now and scan a QR code on your screen. That will take you to the information you need. There will also be a phone bank later today. Tune in tonight at 5 and 6 for more information on how you can donate there. So again, a way that you can help give back and help those folks in need there in Texas who are hurting. All right, so speaking of weather, was come back home. Let's talk about what's happening here. I feel like I sound like Al Roker in our neck of the woods. How did that sound? Did that sound?
You did sound like Al Roker.
I'm not.
Take his stick, Nick.
I'm not.
Yeah.
That is Brittany Van Voorhees. I know I would never take Al's thing. That's why I have Nick's picks, Nick's X.
You make your own thing.
I make my own thing. But I love Al. We have this. I feel like we have the same thing going with the bald head and the glasses.
But you pave your own path.
I pave my own path. I have a beard. Al Walker does not.
Allie doesn't have a beard.
That's what I'm saying. I have a beard. That's
Yeah.
my own thing. So I say all that to say I love Al Roker. I love Brittany Van Voorhees, who's here
I love you too.
giving us. Thank you, Brittany.
Did you guys see that my outburst about the weather apps made it onto a little clip on social media?
I saw that.
I was like, oh no.
I saw that.
What did I say?
Did you go viral yet?
No, but my friend Austin, the one who texted me that
the
prompted
famous
that whole
Austin.
thing, he did see it. And he said that he's going to just start texting me ridiculous things during the stream so that we have something
So that you
to talk
pop
about.
off some more?
And I said, no, that's just weather related. And he goes, I'll come up with something. I'm like, okay, whatever.
The famous Austin.
Okay.
All right, Brittany. So we had rain yesterday evening. I'm not gonna lie, I was asleep at like 9 o'clock.
As you should have been.
So catch us up.
I guess you weren't watching live weather impact with Chief.
I have a bedtime and
It's a strict bedtime,
I have a
too.
strict bedtime. I get up early, so
Is that so you can run?
yes, workout, run.
My question, how was your run this morning? Did
It
it
was
feel like you
hard.
was swimming?
It was hard.
Outside.
No, I did run outside. I did some treadmill work. So
You didn't, okay.
Yeah. I still was very sweaty and tired, but I feel great.
I'm glad
great.
to hear it. That's because
Yes.
it's got some AC in here. It is disgusting outside. That's an official weather term.
Okay.
The humidity is nasty. Just not great.
Yeah.
Dew points back in the mid 70s. Honestly, we're very thankful that our temperature right now is 79 because if not, we would probably have a heat index close to 110, kind of like we had a few weeks ago. So thankful for the humidity being high, but the temp being low. And a lot of that has to do with what you see outside right now. Lots of dense cloud cover. In fact, we're tracking a little bit of light rain, which does look like we could be seeing some drizzle right now happening from our Dallas tower cam, but that's going to help us later on today. Now, right now we are tracking some light rain, but later on this afternoon, this is actually going to help us because it's going to help stabilize the atmosphere. So you can still see we have some rain around, but look locally as we get closer. While there's isolated storms you can see here over in parts of Georgia and to the upstate of South Carolina, everything across the Charlotte area is just light rain. You can see that from the Charlotte Metro to Dallas Tower Cam. That's probably what that was from our Tower Cam. A little bit of light rain too in York County, up the I-77 corridor into northern Meck, and then eventually into Iredell. Another good thing here about these is that it's light. It's also moving pretty fast. You can see it's not nearly as slow moving as the activity we had yesterday. So while I do expect that we will see some downpours at times this afternoon, the cloud cover right now is again keeping us a little bit more stable, which means lesser gusty wind impact later on today. So we're really honing in on the chance there for some localized flooding. Yesterday, we were under a high risk for areas, especially east of Charlotte, similar to spots that were impacted by Chantal. Today, we're under a medium risk. So that just essentially goes to show me that the National Weather Service is agreeing upon the fact that we will see less storm activity today, which means a lesser risk of rain chances becoming, significant or widespread. I do think our best chance across the Charlotte area specifically, so 4 to 9 p.m. tonight, flooding number 1, lightning number 2, downburst number 3. I know Brad and I were talking about this during live weather impact, but a lot of times when we talk about downburst winds, we're looking for cold air, some drier air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, because that essentially evaporative cooling allows for the cold pool to push toward the ground and for that downburst itself to happen. But sometimes when we have a setup like this, where there's so much moisture and so much heavy rain, the actual heavy rain itself can cause quick downbursts. Normally, those are not as strong as what we would see during the springtime. So that's why yesterday, you probably heard Brad and I talking about some downbursts around 40 to 45 miles an hour. With the ground saturated, still certainly high enough to see isolated risks for, minor trees down, things like that. Items blown away. So if you have anything that you don't want to lose, you got to make sure that is tied down. That's the word I was looking for. Here's Futurecast this afternoon. So there you go, 3 and 4 o'clock. Heaviest rain, I do think, closer to 5 and 6. And then we're pretty much out of here by 9, which is a good sign. Yesterday, we were looking at later storms. I don't think that will be the case today. Essentially, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, every single day has lesser storm impacts compared to where we are today. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, probably 30 to 20% chance at a maximum. Yesterday, I want to show you guys this to show that while we have less storms, the impacts are still the same as to yesterday. So flooding still number 1, lightning still number 2, wind still number 3. So, and that will even be the case tomorrow. It's just that every single day has less storms than Wednesday. So that was our peak. It gets lesser as we go. I know we talked about this during the stream yesterday, but just want to remind folks that when you see a Futurecast rainfall map, it is guidance, not gospel. We will likely see some pockets of heavy rain that can lead to localized flooding, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Lancaster is going to have exactly 1.59, while Charlotte's going to have exactly 1.58. What this is trying to show you is you see those isolated pockets, Lancaster, Monroe, over towards Shelby, where you see 1.5 inches plus, but you look Albemarle, Waysboro, Rockingham, all those spots that see little. The reason why I showed you this is because feast or famine essentially means one area sees a lot of heavy rain, and you could have your friends, less than a mile away, have nothing at their house. So that's just the general nature of these storms. They dump a lot of rain over one spot, they move out, but not everybody is impacted by it. Today marks the full moon for July. I know we have many stargazers, spotters that like to look up at the night sky. This will peak today. Unfortunately, with a lot of clouds, I think you'll have a hard time seeing it unless you're up really, really early Friday morning. However, if you know anything about the moon, it stays bright, and while not technically officially full for multiple days, it still stays bright. So I think you'll have plenty of opportunities to see it. So today, keeping folks weather alert. Again, main impact storms, localized flooding, secondary lightning, and then last downburst winds. Tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, lesser storm impacts in general, but that does mean we'll be hotter and a little bit more humid. I do think we could have heat index values getting close to the 100-degree mark by this weekend. That will be well below heat advisory criteria, but it's a weekend in Charlotte during summer. We got lots of stuff going on as always, and especially with it being Charlotte FC's next home match, I know there's a lot of people excited about watching the team play in that match. So just be mindful of the humidity, be mindful of the heat. If you're going to partake in certain activities, especially, please make sure you are staying hydrated.
That is key. I feel like we preach that a lot here on the stream. Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
That's what we do.
Until people aren't impacted by heat and it's no longer the number one weather-related killer, we will keep talking about it.
It's so simple, but I mean, you know how it is. If you're Charlotte FC, you're tailgating, you have a few alcoholic beverages, you know how it goes.
Yes.
You gotta need some water along with it.
Yes, but of course that can also dehydrate you quicker. So
for sure.
Brittany Van Voorhees, thank you for your time. Brittany will be here shortly. About.
You asked me to come back at 1:30.
She's the queen of the stream.
I know, but I was trying to tease it in a way. But yes, she'll be back at 1:30.
Okay, well then I'll go to the bathroom like I did before this one, so it's not exactly 1:30. Okay.
Brittany,
maybe I'll come at 1:27. You never know.
That's fine with me. More Brittany, the better.
That's right.
Or you just stay on and just keep going.
Yeah.
I have a lot of stuff to do, so I'll see you back later.
Brittany, thank you for your time. All right, so we want to go to something live. So happening right now, we want to go to Houston, Texas. So what's happening there? Show you there. So NASA astronauts are preparing to launch to the International Space Station on a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. So there's a news conference happening right now. Let's take a listen in.
To add, so what we found with the heat shield is it's a very big composite piece, and it was very hard to manufacture, I would say, and it was as the components inside this heat shield, there's what's called a laminate. Think of that as the skin, if you will, of this big composite heat shield, and then inside there's various splices that get bonded in and add additional strength to the heat shield. It was a real struggle to manufacture and to get the strength right in various areas. So SpaceX, to their credit, went off and looked at could they build and design an easier to manufacture heat shield, and that's what they have done. It turns out because the other heat shield was a little harder to manufacture, sometimes we had to back off on the capability of the wind speed that we could land at. Now this newer heat shield has been built and it's been tested. In fact, what SpaceX does is they take the heat shield and put it through a test apparatus. They push on it, they pull on it, they subject it to all the kind of forces you'd see in flight. So it's fully qualified, and now we'll fly it for the first time on Crew 11. So it's an upgrade that I would say both gives us a little better capability for landing wind speed, and then also a little bit more structural capability, easier to build. And see if Sarah has anything to add.
Nope, you got it exactly right, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that question. We'll do one more here in the room, and then we'll finish up the remainder of our time on the phone bridge.
Thanks. Will Robinson Smith of Spaceflight Now again. Just to follow up on Marcia's Starliner question and your response, Steve. The flight early next year, has it been determined if that will have crew on board or strictly cargo, or what the status of that is? Thanks.
Yeah, we're still looking at that, whether it to be a cargo flight or not. I think there's a lot of advantages, I would say, to flying a cargo flight first. If we really look at the history of Starliner and both Dragon, I think Dragon benefited a lot from having earlier flights before the crew contract was let for a space station for cargo. What we're really looking at is, can we test all the changes that we are making to the doghouses, in particular on the ground, and would we want to validate those in flight first? And so there's a strong chance we'll fly a cargo flight first, and then we still haven't made that decision yet, but that's still in front of us.
Thank you very much for that, and we'll go back to our phone bridge. Again, we only have a couple more minutes left in our time today, so be sure to keep your questions brief. We'll start with Jonathan Seri with Fox News.
The Dragon Endeavor for this mission, does that change the estimates for loss of mission, loss of crew, and what are those current estimates?
I didn't hear the first part of the question. I think the question was, does the additional certification change the loss of crew numbers? Was that the question?
It does the upgrades to the drogue and also the heat shield to this Dragon. Does that change the estimates for loss of mission, loss of crew?
We haven't really totally looked at that number. I think the number is in the same range that we've had, and we can get that number for you. I don't remember it off the top of my head this morning, but certainly they are safety upgrades, improving crew safety, both of those, the heat shield and the drogue. I don't have off the top of my head what the improvement in.
Yeah, if I may, Steve, you guys have given us requirements for loss of mission, loss of crew, and Dragon has always been designed to meet those requirements. And similarly, we've been operating within the requirement space that NASA gave us for all of these systems on all the previous flights. The couple of upgrades we've been making more recently are purely improvements above and beyond that. So we don't go back and reopen those analyses of certifying the vehicle. It's more about moving in the right direction. And as you mentioned with the heat shield, a lot of those improvements aren't really about the flight itself, but about the manufacturability of the material or the ease of maintenance from one flight to the next.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Sarah, for that. And we'll finish up with one more question and one more answer. We'll go to Kenneth Chang with the New York Times.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on Chris Davenport's question. How many people from the NASA teams on ISS and commercial crew are leaving? I wanted to make sure, are any of you leaving? And how do you manage that transition where a lot of people with the knowledge are no longer going to be there? and how do you backfill? Thank you.
Yeah, I would say we don't have a total number of people that have departed or will depart. Remember, all these projections are really after Crew 11. So for Crew 11, that mission's not affected at all by the departures. And in some cases, what I think we'll see is people that have been here for a long time and were planning to retire anyway may retire a little earlier. And so I would say personally, I'm not planning on taking the DRPs. Although I'm sure some people encourage me to take it. So.
And I want to offer to Mr. Bowersox if he had anything to add in terms of from SOMD.
I was just going to say I'm not planning to take any of the early retirement options either, although I'm getting close to that age, so nobody should be surprised when it happens. I also wanted to say that we have some tools as we're trying to manage the critical skills in the workforce. There are ways we can incentivize people to stay. We can ask people to delay their departure so that they can transfer their knowledge to other people. But I don't want to underexpress the fact that we are losing people and that we have folks that have been part of our team for a long time that are going. This is going to require us to take a different look at how we do our business, to focus our operation. That's kind of the good part of it is as this will cause us to work and be more efficient. But we're going to miss those people. They were part of our team, and we'll miss them as they go. But I have confidence that our team will work through this and we'll stay strong.
Thank you very much. And that is all the time that we do have for today's mission news briefing as we get ready for the next crew rotational mission to the International Space Station and Crew 11 coming up very soon. Special thanks to Ken Bowersox, Bill Spetz joining us of NASA, Sarah Walker of SpaceX, and Miami Matsura of JAXA joining us along. Be sure to stick around and stay with us at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, a chance to speak.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We are approaching the top of the hour. That is a live look. Houston, Texas, at the NASA SpaceX crew as they prepare to launch. They held a briefing there, taking questions. So that is wrapping up. So we want to come back home. Pretty cool story that came across our desk yesterday. I was able to talk to founder and director of Hope Street Food Pantry, Melody Leedy. I had a really good conversation because they got a great opportunity, Carlene. So the Charlotte Hornets Foundation announced this week it donated $100,000 to Hope Street Food Pantry. Just to give you an idea of what they do, it's an organization dedicated to ensuring that no one in our community goes hungry. And what they got was the annual hunger grant. So I got a chance to talk to Melody Leedy, the founder of Hope Street Food Pantry. She gave me some background on what they do, how they were able to land this grant. Really good interview. Got a little emotional too, Carlene.
Of course.
Because you're talking about folks' lives, the impact they do.
And you said $100,000?
$100,000.
I mean, that's life-changing money. That's for an organization like that, that's huge.
And they're able to change lives. She said something that was great. We're doing life together.
Right.
And so we got to help folks that we're doing life with. So let's take you there to that interview with Melody Leedy.
Let's get started. I got the press release yesterday from the Charlotte Hornets. So take me back. So it was $100,000. How did you guys find out that you guys were recipients of the grant?
So if I take you all the way back, so this is our third year that we're doing our annual kickball tournament. And so last year we were getting ready for it. We always prep in the summer and then we do it in September. And we actually contacted the Hornets to see if they could donate anything for our silent auction. And they actually came back to us and were like, they had said, we're looking at your organization. We've got this hunger pillar of our grant program that is part of the Charlotte Foundation. Would you be interested in interviewing and just telling us, what would you do with $100,000? And I said, yes, so freaking fast. I was like, absolutely. So I got to interview with the Charlotte Hornets Foundation a year ago in July. And I just got to tell our story. And at the time, we were sort of in the middle of launching a new program with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. And so once a month, we were taking our truck of food and we were going to a library in Mecklenburg County, and we were setting up a mobile pantry. And so we were looking at how effective this was becoming, how popular. It's on a bus line. People are comfortable at the library. And so it was just flocking all kinds of people. And I said, well, what would it look like if you guys jumped on board with this grant and we expanded it? And what would it look like if we did it every week? And so that really became our pitch and our goal for this year. And in October of last year, they came back and said, congratulations, you have been chosen. And so first week of January, we were in a Charlotte Mecklenburg library. And so every Tuesday, we're at a different library in Mecklenburg County in communities that need it most. That came from research and from partnering with the library. Where are the food deserts? You know, West Charlotte is a really hot zone for food deserts. We were at Sugar Creek Library on Tuesday where we fed 174 families, and it had nothing to do with the Hornets being there. So these have become really popular because it is in the communities that are, you know, our food insecure neighbors are living. So that was really the launch of, you know, how they came on board. So if you've seen pictures of our super cool van, it's got the Charlotte Hornets on it with our mission statement, removing barriers so no one goes hungry with Hope Street Food Pantry. And that's, you know, Tuesday was just the celebration of that.
I mean, that idea sounds like a no-brainer.
Right.
Like it's a layup, not to use the basketball terms,
Right.
or the Hornets. Was there any ever doubt that, okay, we might not get it and we'll just have to figure something?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I move quicker than money. So I'm already, you know, I'm telling the library, I actually told them, I said, we don't have the funding, but this is the idea. You know, I believe that this is going to happen. We're going to move forward in it. And they were like, great, you know, we'll do whatever we can to help you guys make this happen. So we didn't have funding whenever we sort of set out on this goal. And so we've secured Food Lion as a sponsor, and we've secured the Hornets with this grant this year. And that was really just the piece that I knew was supposed to come together to bring food to our people. Because if I talk about removing barriers, we've got to talk about that transportation piece and, you know, walkability. And a lot of our community is unhoused, or they're going from shelter to shelter, or, I mean, the stories are endless. Just, we want attention. And so bringing the food to them at their libraries, I mean, like you said, it's a no-brainer, and it was an instant success. So now we just continue to try to expand that program and take even more food to more libraries and just bridge these gaps.
Stories, you talk about it. Is that what drives you every day? And I know you said you move quicker than the money, but is that what keeps you going?
Which part?
Hearing the personal stories, the people that you're touching.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Yeah, the personal stories, they're endless. I grew up feeding with my mom. She actually runs a food pantry in West Virginia where the poverty line, it's too vast. It's too vast. And you think you're not doing a lot, but when you start hearing the personal stories, because we look at the big numbers and we're like 174 families, that's around 600 individuals. If you look at that, you're like, wow, that's a big number. That's fantastic. But when you talk to the 2 middle school kids who walked for an hour last week in the blazing heat with a shopping cart as representatives for their households, those are the things that just keep you going. Oh my goodness, this work is hard, but you got to keep going. Oh my goodness, you need more money, but you got to keep going. Oh my goodness, there's kids and parents living in their vehicles because they promised a job when they moved to Charlotte and then that fell through. And just all these different scenarios, really like snowflakes, because there's no two that are the same. But if I can do something, you know, if I can put the Charlotte logo on the side of a van and drive a van to, you know, with thousands of pounds of food, why not, man? It is the best job in the whole world. And we were talking about it on Tuesday, and I was like, this feels like home. Like, this feels like home, to show up into a library and people feel safe and they feel seen. And we have a lot of regulars that are traveling with us and picking up food for their families. And they're like, hey, Mel, how's your kids? You know, what's going on? And I get to, hey, tell me about your mom. You know, last week she was in the hospital. You know, that community of going, we're doing life together. And someone came through the line on Tuesday and she said, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've been here. Thank you. This is such a big deal. And I told her, I said, we're all in need. Have you been to the grocery store? I don't care what, right? Your face tells it all. Like, oh my goodness. Have you gone to buy a loaf of bread? Like a loaf of bread. So we get as much food as we possibly can. We're no referral. We're no appointment. We show up. We never know who's going to show up. But we always over prepare, and we don't turn anybody away. So we absolutely love it.
You're right. We're doing life together, no matter where you are on the socioeconomic scale, right? We're all doing life together. And this is the perfect example of that.
Right? Like, Hugo was out on Tuesday, which was just such a huge hit. And there was this moment where these kids were like on a field trip and they had come to the library for story time. But Hugo was out there, so they came to see Hugo, and we had popsicles. We were giving out popsicles. There's just this moment where Hugo was like high-fiving these kids, and, you know, like it's stuff like that. Like, there's joy even in the midst of sorrow, and we can bring hope, and we can stretch hope when we work together. Like, it makes it go even further. And somebody with the Charlotte Hornets Foundation was like, maybe they would have never got to meet Hugo before, or one of the Honeybees cheerleader was like handing out grocery bags. Like, and even to hear a middle school girl say, I cheered in elementary school. Let me tell you about my story. She's just receiving that and just affirming her and saying, oh, will you show me one of your cheers? Like, that's cool. Like, that's doing life together. That's being seen. That's leveling the playing field. Oh, by the way, here's 20 pounds of food in a grocery bag. Like, let's make a difference in your life.
Bringing kids, and I'm also hearing like it's bringing these kids closer to their dreams, because, you know, I'm from High Point. We couldn't afford to go to Hornets games or Carolina Panthers games, and to have that, that's huge.
It's aspiration. Yeah. I just think that's such a big deal. And I was talking to one of the ladies from the Charlotte Hornets Foundation. That's exactly what I said. I was like, my goodness, like, we've got to instill dreams in our kids of going, yes, this is my situation right now, but my goodness, look at what it could be. Like, right? Like, that's part of the hope that we get to bring. And, you know, when you get to check in on a family and, you know, hey, how are you doing? You know, you applied for that job last week. How's that going? Did you get a call back? Hey, I know you put in for emergency housing. How's that looking? Man, I'm super sorry about that. We're going to keep praying over that, right? Like, I even had a guy on Tuesday. I gave him a loaf of bread because he was unhoused. And I said, hey, there's peanut butter already in your bag. Can I add jelly to that so you can make sandwiches? And he took one of our flyers, and I said, oh, yeah, like put that somewhere you can remember where we're going to be, because it has our whole schedule. And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. But I want it because one day when I get on my feet, I want to come back and help. And I was like, you said it. When? I said, I believe wholeheartedly that's going to happen. And he just had this smile on his face. Like, if we're not doing life together, we don't get to speak into each other. And I don't get to look at you and say, man, I see talent in you. I see hope. I see dream. Like, that's part. We're like, yeah, food is the connector, and that's the bridge that opens the door for us to be able to minister to our community. But it's the people thing. It's the connection thing. Like, that's my favorite part of it.
That doesn't happen enough. Like, speaking life into each other, that does not happen enough. Like, food is what got the folks there, but speaking life into people, oh man.
Right? Like, you're getting a taste of, like, that's literally every day of what we do. And that's why Tuesday is such a big deal, because we get so many one-on-one moments. Like, we get these 5-second, 10-second, minute windows of just, you know, whether you're a believer or not, we, you know, when it's okay, when they give us permission, and we can just gather around them and we can pray over them. Even as a non-religious organization, I can believe in a God God of miracles and just say, hey, man, but what if? Like, that's my story is, what would happen if we opened a food pantry in North Charlotte where there's none, with a shelf of food in a basement of an old house on the corner of church property? What would happen if? And then 7 years later, and that's why I just, like, over and over on Tuesday, I'm telling the Charlotte Hornets, you have no idea. Like, I'm a white girl from West Virginia who said, man, what if we saw our community for who they really are as people? I say it all the time. What does hungry look like? It looks like me. It looks like you, Nick. Like, it looks like all of us. And my kids, who have 3 kids who have grown up doing this, and they come and they know the people, and my community knows them. And, you know, we do life together, and we break bread together, and we pray over each other. And, you know, just because I show up to feed doesn't mean I'm sitting on this side going, man, I got it all together. Right. Are you crazy?
Mm-hmm. You do so much. Oh man, you got me emotional during this interview. This is not what I intended. But it's something I needed to hear. So I say all that to say, how can we help you as a community? How can we help?
Yeah, I think getting the word out is the biggest deal for us. You know, that's why I sit down all the time and talk about Hope Street. Any chance that I get is we have to tell our story. Everybody has a story, and it is impactful to someone. I'm sitting with you and I'm telling, you know, you our story, and I guarantee you it's hitting points within your brain going, oh my goodness, right? Like, you tell your story to me and I'm going, oh my goodness. And then I meet someone and I'm like, oh my gosh, me and Nick were just talking about this. Let me tell you about, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to tell our story. And one of our biggest ways for people to talk about or to find us is, hey, I went to Hope Street Food Pantry. They gave me food, but they also saw me and they were respectful and they were kind. Man, come and get food. Because every time I get to check in a client, I say, hey, how'd you hear about us? Oh, my mom comes. Oh, my friend comes. Oh, my sister comes. And now it's, hey, I saw you on the news. You know, this is something where it's open, it's available. You can come once a week. It's no referral. It's no appointment. It's no ID. It's no financial income. It's just come, right? Like, it's just come. It is just come. And so we got to tell our story and make our services available. Oh my goodness, don't get me started. We should not have to jump through so much red tape to get assistance. And we just want to treat people like people. So share the word, share the story, share the resources. And we're working together, right? Like, you may never come out to Hope Street and give someone a bag of food, but I can guarantee you telling our story is going to make a bigger impact, because now people know to come. We're ready. We're excited. We're open tonight from 4 to 7 p.m. We'll feed around 500 families in a parking lot in North Charlotte. And, you know, we're going to sweat together and love on each other and see our clients and just have the absolute best time doing it.
Not even a question. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. You guys totally deserve this grant. You don't need me to say that you deserve it, but I just wanted to say that. And thank you for this interview.
Oh, gosh, are you kidding me? We love telling our story.
Man, Melody was so great to talk to. Melody Leedy from Hope Street Food Pantry. Congratulations to you guys. They're able to expand the work they do. If you don't know what they do, look them up. They're on social media. They're very active. Again, shout out to Melody. All right, so let's go to something live. What's happening live? Let's go to Indianapolis, Indiana, where U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is giving remarks. She is at an event as the Indianapolis legal community welcomes her for the first time, and actually welcomes for the first time a U.S. Supreme Court justice to this sort of gathering. So again, she is speaking right now. She's been speaking for the past several minutes or so. So let's take a listen into what she is saying right now.
Prove that it is. Someone says you don't have a kingdom and you hire people to prove that that's not the case. You know, stay focused. And I mentioned this and talked with a lot of my friends, and we really tried to make sure that we weren't impeding our ability to do the work, which was exactly what the person who had put the flag would want for us to do. So it was a big kind of turning point in the way that I view my purpose, which is to stay as focused as I can on the work that I was called to do.
I think we all could learn that lesson. Especially now, let's don't be distracted from the good work that we want to do and the oath that Judy reminded us that we took and the people we're here to serve. Because there's a lot of distracting things going on, but we're just going to keep it going, right? Okay. So let's talk about adulthood, your career and your family. Oh, wait. Gotta go. It was at Harvard that you met your now husband.
Yes, my now husband.
The wonderful Patrick Jackson. Can you tell us how your paths crossed and you continued to align in college? And
Yes.
will you also share the Hallmark movie of how you each thought the other only wanted to be friends?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so let me say, for those of you who aren't aware, Patrick is, I would say, a Boston Brahmin. Do you know that phrase? This is, he and his family have been in the Boston area since before the Mayflower. He's 7th generation Harvard. And is like a totally different world. But we met in a class at Harvard called The Changing Concept of Race in America. He was a sociology major and he wanted to learn all about people, and he was in this class and he would sit behind me and tap on my shoulder and put his keys on my earrings and do all kinds of silly things. And at first I thought, oh, this guy is silly, but then I thought, he's kind of cute, you know. And what I noticed was that we were in this class, let's say it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and he would be very chatty with me. And then on Tuesday and Thursday in our government class, I would look down the row and I would wave and I'd try to talk to him, and he would like pretend like he didn't know who I was. You know, he wasn't responsive at all, like half the time. So I said to my roommates, what is going on with this guy? Like, you know, it's so hot and cold. And they said, leave him alone, he's crazy. And I said, no, I'm gonna confront him on one of the friendly days. So I said to him, just about 2 weeks into our knowing each other, I said, why don't you speak to me in our government class? And he said, I'm not taking a government class. I said, yes, you are. I see you in this class. And he says, oh, you must be talking about my identical twin brother. Because he has an identical twin brother, and I did not know this. So that was a little something. And that was in the fall of my sophomore year, his junior year. And so we became friends, you know, not romantic friends, just friends. He started dating this other woman, you know, whatever. But I did kind of secretly like him because he was really cute. By the end of the year, he and his girlfriend had broken up, and he was hanging out a lot with us. And he invited me to come to his family. Now remember, he's from Boston and we're in Cambridge, so not very far. His family has a vacation home on the Cape. And this is like the last day of my sophomore year, and I'm done with exams, and I'm packing up my room, and he says, you know, do you want to come with me to see this house that I've been talking about? Great. Now I'm thinking, are we on a date? I don't know if we're on a date. I'd never really dated anyone, so it was hard to say, but he never tried anything. We go to this house. The house is boarded up because they don't open it up until the spring. He just wanted me to see it, but you know, he doesn't try to hold my hand. He doesn't try to do anything. So by, you know, a couple of hours in, I'm starting to get really annoyed now because I'm like, okay, this guy obviously doesn't like me. You know, we're by ourselves, nothing's happening. So he says, so my parents live in Dedham. And why don't I go to their house, to my house, and I'll cook dinner for you, and then I'll take you back to the dorm. And I'm like, whatever. I'm really upset. So we go, and he makes dinner, and he's like, okay, so do you want to see a movie? We still have some time, you know, before I take you back. I'm like, fine. we're sitting on the couch in their den, and he does one of these. And I say, no! And I jump up, because at this point now, I had convinced myself that we did not like each other, that he didn't like me. And I didn't want to, have the problem. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, I just don't want to be hurt. He said, I just don't want to be hurt. And we went, oh. And he said, Ketanji, I will never hurt you. I love you. And I was like, what? And we dated from that point on for 7.5 years, and we've been married for 28 years.
Single young men in the room, remember that. I will never hurt you, and I love you. Okay. All right. Well, let's turn to your career.
Yes.
And your roles in the legal system. So start with your time as a law clerk. You've served as a district law clerk, a circuit law clerk, and a Supreme Court law clerk. Can you share the highlights of those experiences and tell them, and especially our law student people here, what's the value of a clerkship?
Oh my goodness, the clerkship is just extraordinary. So first of all, I had great good fortune of clerking at each level of the federal system, and they're all very different. And I felt very privileged to be able to see how a judge operates, especially if you were thinking about litigation as your long-term career goal. There really is nothing like seeing a case from the perspective of the judge. And if you think about what you do as a litigator, your job is to persuade the judge to rule in favor of your client. And so having a chance to work with a judge, seeing things from their perspective, reading all the briefs that come in, seeing people day after day in court, there's a point at which, at least for me, it was like, oh, I'm so much better than that person. You build your own self-confidence by engaging with the lawyers who appear before your judge. And so I always attempt to encourage law students to apply to clerkships. It can be any clerkship, it can be any judge. Just get the experience of having worked for them. And also you develop a mentor-mentee relationship that will be there for you professionally throughout your career. Also extremely significant.
So another experience you had in your career is that you're the only, I believe, United States Supreme Court Justice who ever worked as a public defender.
That is true.
So can you tell us about that work, and then also your work on the Sentencing Commission and how that sort of informs your judging today or your judging in the past?
Well, it certainly informed my judging as a district judge, which was an enormously wonderful opportunity to be a district judge. I think one of the stories that I often tell is how being a public defender and interacting with my clients made me a better district judge. The sort of particular thing that I noticed, I was an appellate defender, which meant that all of my clients had been convicted, and I was assigned to work with them to draft their briefs on appeal and try to argue their cases. I was in the District of Columbia, so I had my own caseload arguing in the DC Circuit on behalf of criminal defendants who had been convicted. And one of the things that you do in this position is you go and you talk to your client and you say, okay, can you help me? They're all in jail and you're calling them. Can you help me figure out what happened at your trial that you think might have been a problem that I can look into as a basis for appeal? And very few of them really understood what had happened. I mean, they had gone through the most consequential time and thing that they'd ever done in their entire lives, and they were not able to really understand the trial process and what had happened. And I think that experience stayed with me as a judge, because I decided very early on that I was going to focus on communicating with the defendants who came before me in the courtroom. That, you know, they might not agree with what ultimately happened to them if I sentenced them or whatever, but they weren't going to be confused about the process. And so I would script out my sentencings. And I had steps, and I would say, Mr. So-and-so, this is a sentencing, this is what's going to happen, here are the steps, do you have any questions? I can answer them, because I felt that it was so important to treat the people who came before me with respect, because it was crucial for their rehabilitation. My clients weren't rehabilitating because they were too upset at being mistreated in the process. And so what I said is, I want these people to reform. I want them to come out of prison and not do this anymore. And in order to be able to facilitate that, I've got to show them that the process was fair, that they were heard, and that even though this is not the result that they wanted, right, they are suffering the consequences of their decisions to engage in criminal behavior. I would say that in my script. You know, I'm sentencing you because you have to face the consequences of your decision to engage in criminal behavior. So it made me a much better district judge, I think. I think it made me a better, or makes me a better appellate judge, because I have seen the real impact on people, on their families. When you're representing people as a defender, you are engaging with them in a way that you don't when you're at the Supreme Court. So it was enormously impactful for me to be a defender.
Our Chief Justice has a phrase, Loretta Rush, she says, the hot breath of humanity, right? That you have to be able to feel the hot breath of humanity, and I think those rules did for you. But there was important, impactful work at the Sentencing Commission that was accomplished when you were there, that cured some very serious inequities in sentencing law that really had a racial impact. Can you share that with our group?
So, many people are familiar with the 100-to-1 crack powder sentencing disparity that used to exist. This is the legislature deciding that this is Congress deciding to set mandatory minimums at varying levels depending upon the kind of drug that you were convicted of. And when they initially set up these mandatory minimums, you would get the same amount of time in jail for 100 times more powder than for crack. So you could have an ounce of crack and get 5 years, and you'd have to have 100 grams or whatever, I can't remember, of powder. And what was doing was the commission did a lot of research into this. Because crack cocaine was more prevalent in African American communities, it was resulting in a dramatic inequity in terms of sentences, mandatory minimum sentences for people in the African American communities, getting much, much longer sentences. And so the commission did a lot of research, and Congress eventually changed the ratios, not 1-to-1, which is what the defenders pushed for and many judges pushed for, but they changed it dramatically to make it better. During my time, right before I came onto the commission, and then the commission had to decide whether we were going to make those changes retroactive in the guidelines, which was our bailiwick. And it was a pretty dramatic time, but we all decided unanimously. The Sentencing Commission is a 7-member, bipartisan, by statute board. And it was a pretty big deal to get all 7 members of the Sentencing Commission to agree to retroactively reduce the sentences for people who had been sentenced under this really draconian, inequitable mandatory minimum sentencing system. And so I was very proud of the work that we did. I gave a very impassioned speech about it.
You should watch it on YouTube. I think you actually clap like this when it. It's really
but it was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
You also worked for the Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem.
Yes.
And you saw there, you said the way law can hurt or help people.
Yes.
Can you describe ways that you've tried to use law to help people?
Oh my goodness. Well, the law can certainly help people in many different ways, locally, in your community. If there are inequities, there are lots of good lawyers, defenders, people who are trying to ensure that the government does what it's supposed to do in respecting people's rights. The Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem, which I would also recommend to law students, if there are law students out there, I went and worked for them for a summer. This is in Harlem. It's a program of the Vera Institute of Justice. And it was really new when I first started, but I interned before I became a lawyer. And I was from Miami, Florida, totally different dynamic than Harlem in the city. And I just learned so much about how the law works from interacting with real people in that position. So law school students, there are lots of opportunities to try to really understand the law, and I would encourage you to do something like that.
And if I could make an unpaid commercial announcement, on our court, you can also volunteer to represent a prisoner who has litigation and needs to go to trial. So we have some volunteers. I don't know if they're here. Ms. Burpo and Mr. Hughes, if you're here, raise your hand. But thank you for your trial on Tuesday. And at the end of it, even though he lost, the prisoner plaintiff said, "Thank you for the forum, Judge."
Yes.
So that's a great way that you can help human beings. But let's switch back real quick to Patrick, because I know a lot of the people here, and I know that a lot of people here are parents.
Yes.
And two-job parents, and you and Patrick have navigated those challenges. Can you share with us that experience or your advice?
Patrick is a surgeon. And as you heard from my story, we met in college, and he was going to medical school, and I was going to law school. And so we both knew that we had pretty demanding careers ahead of us. And we decided early on that because our careers were important to us, we were going to essentially take turns in terms of the parts of our career that we could manage, to the extent we could manage it. So when he went through his residency, for example, he was a surgical resident, which is a 5-year program after 4 years of medical school. He was.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. It is 1:32, the bottom of the hour. Right now, you're watching live in Indianapolis, Indiana, as U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is giving remarks at an event there. She's been speaking for a while now, so we took it live. All right, so on your top right, we are tracking storms potentially in our area moving in this afternoon. Well, that's the timeline this afternoon. So that's a look at the radar. Below, U.S. leaders debating on the Senate floor. All right, so I mentioned that radar, and I should have had that last so I could have a better segue to Brittany, but as I promised, meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees is back in studio with a look at your forecast. Brittany, thank you for coming back. I know you're busy. You were doing a stream last night. What can you tell us? Is it same thing from yesterday as far as what we're dealing with?
Same impacts, but lesser.
Okay.
So think like flooding is still priority number 1. Lightning and gusty winds are still priorities 2 and 3. We're just not going to see as much activity. And
Gotcha.
the really big reason why, well, we were already expecting this, but even more so, the fact that we just don't have a lot of instability right now. We are starting to see sun peek through the clouds at some of our cameras, but I think I mentioned this earlier. We were only at 79 at noon yesterday. We were already in the 90s by noon. So I think that is a good measure of like how much hotter and more humid it was yesterday. This is a look right now outside. So we're still seeing a lot of clouds at Lake Norman, still a lot of clouds from Monroe. Dallas starting to see a peak of a little bit of cloud cover, Anson County the same. So we're not completely clouded over. And we weren't expecting to not see the sun today. It's just that early morning kind of hold is going to at least taper off a little bit of that instability. So my best way to explain that would be that we have lesser chance for that reason because of gusty winds, but because the humidity is still very high, that still means that we're going to have the chance for some heavy rain at times. I think this is also a really, really good map to show. This is our current radar to show consistent cloud cover, keeping things a little bit more mild in the Charlotte area where we only have light rain. And now we're starting to see some thunderstorms mix in the mountains. Not something you see every day where we have light rain and very, very little activity here where the mountains are seeing more. So right now some light rain pushing through the metro, the 485 loop. Again, this is not storm activity, it's just light rain. I actually was outside doing my interview for Miles Harris's story later on, and we did start to see some light rain. It was barely enough that I even noticed that it was raining. So just gonna give you an idea. A little bit of heavy rain starting to develop on the border there between Cleveland County and Burke County, and then other than that, some storm activity right now over Wilkes County. So again, nothing local that is significant as of now, but we will see more isolated to scattered storms this afternoon and evening. Here's a wider view of satellite and radar. You can see a lot of energy still off to our west and western parts of Tennessee, as well as a little bit further south there in Georgia. So this energy, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do an arrow. I meant to do a little squiggle, so let's see. I'm using a mouse, you guys. I got a mouse plugged into my laptop. It's making my life easier, so I'm trying to draw. I'm trying to be Brad when he does his vlogs. So it's this piece, this little energy that's eventually going to move this way.
It's great
I would never
artwork.
be Brad, but you know, it's fine. One can hope and dream to be as cool as Brad Vanovich. Excessive rainfall outlook, so this is essentially the risk to see flash flooding. We're under a medium risk today. We were under a high risk for those areas in Greensboro, Raleigh, down towards Southern Pines yesterday. So they're under a lesser risk. We're about the same, but with the exception of the mountains that are under a low risk. If you're looking at best chance to see storms, 4 to 9. Again, flooding number 1, lightning number 2, and then downburst winds will be number 3. And it's not because we have dry or cold air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. This is more so downburst potential that's just caused by the heavy rain itself being pushed toward the ground. Right now, here's Futurecast as we look at 3. There's closer to 6. There's closer to 9. Something else to note is I think the storms will be over earlier. So while they did linger a little bit closer to midnight last night, although we didn't have any more flash flood warnings or severe thunderstorm warnings past, what was our last warning, Jeb? I feel like it was like 8:30, 8:45, because we went off at 9, and that was like, we went off essentially because we had the last warning. And then Brad popped back on to talk about the flood advisories at 10. But because of that, that was much later. We don't normally see storms that late. So today will be more normal. We'll have most of them wrapping up after 9, which of course sunset happens this time of year just after 8:30. Friday, we're looking at lesser storms in general. I think that the big thing to note is that we'll have less storms today than yesterday. Friday, we'll have less storms than today. Storm impacts, again, still flooding number 1, lightning number 2, winds number 3. No risk for hail and no risk for tornadoes. Here's the Futurecast rainfall. I know I showed this about an hour or so ago. Just again, another reminder to folks that this is not gospel, that we always say it's guidance. So it's generally showing that we could have some pockets of heavy rain that could allow for certain areas to accumulate 1, maybe 1.5 inches over the next few days, whereas others could see nothing. And that's just the general kind of trend of storms this time of year. So we're still keeping folks weather alert just because of the flooding potential, the storms, the gusty winds, the lightning, right, today. But then lesser storms Friday, Saturday, Sunday, eventually getting back toward normal temperature-wise. I do want to note 2 things about Saturday. And I know it's a weekend in Charlotte, so there's so much going on. But Charlotte FC is back at home for their match on Saturday. We have temperatures in the mid-90s. Feels like numbers will be creeping close to 100. So no matter what you're doing outside, again, just remember, while that's not toward the dangerous levels we had a few weeks ago where we went weather alert, it's just a reminder that you're outside, it's summer, it's gross out, be safe. Heading out on the boat, things like that, make sure you're keeping an eye out for yourself, your friends, and your family.
Speaking of that, you mentioned Miles earlier. So Miles is covering a story. I interviewed you for that about a person struck by lightning in Iredell County on yesterday. So the incident happened on Branton Road in northern Iredell County. The rescue squad there treated a 40-year-old man, or 40-year-old person, I should say, at the scene. That person was conscious and alert after the lightning strike. That's according to authorities. Just to give you some context and some background. So talk about what you and Miles spoke about as far as, I guess, what folks need to look out for, because that is a part of, you talk about the summertime, a lot of folks are going to be outside. You just want to make sure you're safe on that end as well.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, and it sounds, I mean, to me, being a meteorologist, it sounds simple, but even sometimes we don't, listen to our own advice. I feel like that's a very common thing. You've heard Brad always talk about how he'll run, at the peak heat of the day. If you are outside and you see lightning or you hear thunder, you are close enough to be struck by lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Back when we were kids, even though I'm still a few years younger than you, Nick. Just kidding. I mean, yeah, but anyway, besides the point.
She's not kidding.
Their parents and your grandparents would do the whole, count to, whatever, divide by 5. That's how far it is from you. Research has shown that because lightning can strike so far from the parent storm, that doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, we shouldn't be measuring your kid coming back from hanging out, the cul-de-sac with their friends based on the fact that the storm's only 1 mile away versus 5 miles away. In fact, most storms, research-wise, you see lightning striking between 10 to 20 miles an hour from the center of the parent storm. And so again, that means that you could be in, I used the Davidson to Pineville, so I'm going to try to use another one. Fort Mill, TKK, and you could be seeing lightning there, but the parent storm itself is like in South End Charlotte. So like that's a substantial difference. And so sometimes we can see the parent storm, way off in the distance, and we see, the tall cloud, and we see the lightning, but eventually that's not necessarily, what happens, right? And this happened, we call them bolt from the blue, because people feel like it comes out of the blue. It's one of the reasons, too, why there was the Lake Murray, South Carolina, where people were struck, most likely because of this same phenomena. Now, yesterday, which I did not know this, but of course it's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, and he knows everything about everything, or at least a little nugget at least. The biggest lightning strike to released, from a parent thunderstorm in Oklahoma was 120 miles.
Wow.
So like that, that is substantial. So like, again, we're, it feels like you're comparing apples to oranges because maybe we don't get storms like that, which is fair, whatever. Either way, 10 to 20 miles is substantial. Most outdoor arenas, things like that, the standard for a lot of those, I know Bank of America specifically because we talk about it a lot, is 8 miles. And so one of the reasons why I feel like we see people complain so much about, if a Charlotte FC match, a concert or something is delayed, but 8 is relatively conservative, and that's pretty much like the industry standard for things like that is about 8 to 10, but that's relatively conservative when you consider the fact that most storms can be 10 to 20. So I think that's another thing too is I don't want to say learning empathy because many people have it. It's just reminding yourself that just because it doesn't impact you doesn't mean that you can't be conscious about it. So if you were out at a Charlotte FC match and you're bummed because the match is delayed or something, just remember that it's not just because they're just trying to be annoying. It's because they're trying to keep you safe. And the same thing too when it comes to isolated risk for flash flooding is just because you don't have rain at your house, your neighbor, less than a mile away could have rain at their house. So it's just reminding yourself that just because it doesn't impact you, it doesn't mean that it's not impacting someone else. So I think the biggest thing is remembering that if you're outside, you see it or hear it, you are close enough to be struck. When thunder roars, move indoors, however you want to say it. And while I do not have children myself, I have 1 nephew and 3 nieces that are under 4. I think another thing too, especially as parents, teachers, coaches, whoever you are, making sure that kids also are aware of lightning safety. I'm just thinking again of myself just as a kid is we would run around the cul-de-sac in the neighborhood, whatever. We didn't have cell phones, and we would just come back when it was time for dinner or whatever, and it was basically just a crapshoot. It seems like whether or not we came back on time or not when the the light outside porch light came on. But now there's so many different ways to communicate with your kids. But let's say it's just that one time that you can't get them on their cell phone or whatever. Maybe they don't have one. Make sure they know what to do because they can not only help keep themselves safe, but maybe they're the one who keeps their friends safe or something like that. If they're aware, if they're playing outside, that it's the lightning and thunder that's a risk. As soon as Jeb, I feel like I'm always using you as an example, but as soon as Jeb and I, are playing hide and seek, and I hear thunder, and Jeb's like, "No, Brittany, I want to keep playing." I'm like, "No, Jeb, we are going inside to stay
Jeb
safe."
is hard-headed.
Yeah, so stubborn. So, but I just think that's a good. It's the education part is important in itself. One of the reasons why I love going to school talks because we get to talk to kids about all of these things as well. So just making sure that they're educated as well. You might not be able to tell grandma to go inside because my grandma at least is very, very stubborn, just like Jeb.
Grandpa Jeb.
But kids, I mean, they're sponges, right? They learn from learning, but also from experiencing. So I think that's another thing too that we could do, because then you have peace of mind too. That they're staying safe even when they're at their friend's house, whatever.
You would love this, Brittany. When I was in high school and I played football, we had a lightning drill. So we heard thunder. Yeah, if we heard thunder, we had to run. Yeah, I did play football. We had to run inside.
Jeb just shaded you so hard.
I know. Look, it's fine. It's fine. Back years ago when Jeb was in elementary school, we played football. I played football, and we had a lightning drill. So when we heard thunder, or they would simulate the thunder, we would run inside because lightning is not far away. So
I also do want, because Tony, our photographer, asked this as well. I do want to point out that while you do want to find shelter of some kind, it is better to be inside versus like under shelter. So you think like you're at like a football game, so it made me think about like the overhangs, it's around the bathrooms, the concessions or whatever. Well, that's better than being out. It's not better than like being inside.
Right.
So if you're able to actually physically get inside, that's more ideal. And then of course there's the there's a lot of weather myths that Grandma might not have been right about. Like you cannot get
Grandma.
a cold from just being outside and it being cold. You have to have
it's pneumonia weather outside.
But you can be water can conduct electricity, so it is like your laptop being plugged in. So it is advised to stay away from things that are plugged in when there's lightning around, or like staying out of the shower and things like that.
I've heard all of the myths and all of the everything. I did learn one thing. Don't shower during a...
That's what I just said.
Yeah. Did you just say that? I'm sorry. I missed that.
She just said it.
I missed that.
Nick, she just said it. Not even 20 seconds
You know
ago.
what? You know what it was? She said it, but I was thinking
You were
at the
thinking
same
of things.
time.
You were thinking of myths.
I really was. I'm not...
So does that mean you were not listening? You were just ready to say the next
We all heard the myths growing up, though.
Oh, I actually did think this one was good, too. I know that folks didn't think about it, but Brad brought this up last night. We have so many people who are out on the lake.
Yep.
Especially during the weekends. Metal does not attract lightning.
Okay.
It's a conductor. So you want to stay away from a tall object if you're outside. But let's say your option is a tree and like a cell phone tower. Like it's going to be more attracted to the cell phone tower because it's most likely taller. But it also is going to conduct it downward into the ground, whereas a tree doesn't conduct the same way. Now, I'm not saying that's safe because, it could light on fire with a lightning strike, and that's a whole other thing. But just making sure that you're also mindful of it's not the metal itself, it's like the tallness, of the item. And so I have a lot of people who will be like, I told my family that I was out on the boat and that we shouldn't be on a big pile of metal, out in the middle of nowhere, which is fair. You don't want to be on a boat when there's storms around, but it's not the metal that's attracting it. It would probably be more likely if you had like a huge flag that was waving up, or a huge pontoon with like the big, cover or something like that. So yes, you want to stay safe and head inside, but it's not the metal itself that's causing you like a higher chance. It's the fact that the metal conducts the electricity. So it's not just the boat itself.
And I did learn another thing this morning.
Are you about to tell me that metal is just a conductor of
Okay, all
electricity?
right. Just stumped on my joke. I was listening.
She got it.
She can see it in my eyes. That's why I think she knew that joke was coming.
It's Thursday. You start to
No, Brittany, thank you for your time. Brittany, always no, I wasn't. I was about to make the joke, but you stumped on the joke. That was it. But Brittany, don't go too far. She's coming back shortly for another update. Again, we are weather aware. I know, joking a little bit, but again, this is stuff that you want to make sure you keep in mind. We're having fun. Yeah, I just want to preference.
Since it's only 10 minutes away, do you still want me to come back at 2, or you want me to come closer to 2:15?
We'll discuss that.
Teams me.
We'll team you. Brittany won't be far away. She's leaving right now, but here. Brittany won't be far away. We're going to get another update from Brittany soon. We have a couple of things going live, but I'll let you pick, Carlene. Where should we go? You've been taking a look at the screens.
We haven't even talked about Charlotte's big old business.
Oh, yeah. So we actually have an update from Walker Lawson coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, but let me read it to you. A lot of folks were excited about this, especially in the morning meeting. We've gotten statements from different departments and state officials. So here's what the Department of Commerce put on North Carolina Department of Commerce. So North Carolina has been recognized as the top state for business by CNBC. This announcement marks the third time in the last 4 years that the state has earned this ranking. Governor Stein saying, quote, "This confirms what we have known for a long time, that North Carolina is the best state in the country for business." He also went on to say more. Let's hear from Governor Josh Stein.
Today is a great day for North Carolina. We have been first in flight. We are first in business. CNBC recognized the great work that is happening here in North Carolina to grow this economy. We have one of the strongest economies, excellent infrastructure, an incredible quality of life, but it all starts with our people. We have a talented workforce, from the folks working on the line in advanced manufacturing facilities to the scientists and engineers designing new products that change the world. It's all happening here in North Carolina, and we're really proud to be recognized for the great opportunity that exists in North Carolina.
And North Carolina has ranked #1 in business 3 out of the last 4 years. What specific policies, changes, or investments do you believe made the biggest difference this year under your leadership?
It's all about our people. We have such talented people, hardworking people, friendly people. We have to make sure that they have the skills, the knowledge that they need to be competitive in what is an ever-changing economy. We have great public schools. They can be better. We need to pay our teachers more. We have an incredible community college system. We have great universities, public and private. So we really have the ability to offer to businesses everything they need. They can come here and know that they have the scientists and engineers to design their products and the workforce to build them.
Hi, Governor Stein. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
I just was kind of wondering, what role do smaller cities like Wilmington and southeastern North Carolina, what role do they play in the state's broader economic development?
Yeah, we have a lot of different regions that each have their own to offer the state. And Wilmington, the Cape Fear region, is a critical part of North Carolina's economy. We have PPD, Thermo Fisher, we have the film industry, we have the ports, we have tourism. There's a lot that's going on in North Carolina and Wilmington, and you just need to walk down the streets and you will see the dynamism that is here. We have beauty in the western part of the state, and we really need to help those folks recover from Hurricane Helene. By the way, they're open for business just as Wilmington is. If folks are looking for somewhere to go, Western North Carolina, they're open. They want to welcome you with open arms. And then we've got great things happening in the Triangle. Later today, the Children's Hospital is being announced in the Triangle. It's going to be not only to young people's health care, but also to the economy. It's going to start all kinds of medical device development. It's going to be so exciting, the new therapies that are developed. It's going to create thousands of jobs.
And going off of children, child care access remains a major concern for working families. How do you see your task force on child care and early education contributing to North Carolina's economic competitiveness going forward?
Yeah, child care is a major expense for families, and we need to help parents afford the cost of raising their children. I have tax proposals that will do that, put more money into the pockets of parents raising their kids. A child is finding out ways that we can finance child care and raise the pay of workers so that we can attract the best into this field. Estimates are that child care, the lack of child care in North Carolina is costing the economy over $5 billion a year, because there are so many people who want to work, but honestly they cannot afford to work. And what we want is for parents to make their own decision. Stay at home with your child or go to work. It should be your decision.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah. Governor Stein, thank you so much for being here today. I got to ask about the flip side of this.
Yeah.
This is from CNBC. They said that North Carolina is unfailingly friendly to business, not so friendly to workers. And they ranked us, you talked about quality of life, they ranked us 29th in quality of life, so bottom half of the states. Why is our economic success not translating into happy workers and quality of life?
Well, I don't understand the metrics they used on the quality of life. All I know is that people who move to North Carolina don't move out of North Carolina. That tells me we have a fantastic quality of life. The natural beauty, the outdoor activities, the culture, there's a lot to offer here in North Carolina. We can do better by our workers by helping them earn a better living. So what we're trying to do is recruit businesses that pay a higher wage if people have more money in their pocket, they can afford a home. They can take a vacation with their family. They can securely retire. That's the future we want for North Carolina. More good paying jobs, more opportunity, a better quality of life.
I gotta say, if you're not gonna agree with their rankings for quality of life, why celebrate their rankings for economic success?
Well, what I said was I don't know what metrics they use, so I have to look to see how they came up with their ranking. Look, can things be better? Yes, we're on our toes. We always want North Carolina to be at the top. I wanted to get a perfect score. We did not get a perfect score. So we will constantly ask ourselves, what can we do better? Other states want what we have here in North Carolina. We've got to stay aggressive to make sure we're making the right investments in our people, in our infrastructure, so that we remain on top.
Thank y'all.
All right, some pretty exciting news for North Carolina. That is Governor Josh Stein giving his reaction to that ranking from CNBC. Again, we will have more from Walker Lawson coming up in this hour. We're approaching the top of the hour. Look, we are right here, getting close to the weekend. The weekend is right here. We're almost close. So some big things are happening this weekend here in the Charlotte area. One of those things being the NAACP's National Convention. It is in Charlotte. Tens of thousands of people expected to gather in Charlotte this weekend, again, for the NAACP's National Convention. And fun fact, it's marking the first time in nearly 3 decades that the Civil Rights Organization has held its annual meeting in the Queen City. It begins Saturday, runs through July 16th. Siobhan Riley got a chance to speak with officials with the NAACP, actually North Carolina NAACP President Deborah Maxwell, about this event, and also some things regarding the Trump administration and getting her reaction to that as well. Let's take a listen in.
Well, we are excited that Charlotte is the host city in North Carolina for the 116th annual convention that will be going on until July the 16th. There's youth competition for recognition. We have plenary sessions. We have the hub, which we invite all Charlotteans and others in the area to come down and experience, but you don't have to be a member to attend.
And this political climate that we're in right now, why is this so important?
The title of this conference is The Fierce Urgency of Now. It's very important that we come together, mobilize, and organize with all the detrimental things that have happened within the political spectrum that impact not only people of color, but all people.
And even with the passing of the bill recently, how does, I know that's going to come up, I imagine that's going to come up at the conference. How are you guys, what's your comment to that, the passing of the bill and how that affects the NAACP?
We will still continue to fight. We will continue to litigate. Yes, that has happened, but that does not stop our resolve and not stop us from following our mission and vision statement.
And what are some of the topics, maybe a few, maybe 2 or 3 topics that are really going to stand out in this conference?
We always have things in reference to health, which is severely impacted by the impending legislation. Also political action, which is why I'm here now for a political action boot camp to rejuvenate from multiple states are here right now. In every area which we work on, we have over 20-something committees, there will be information provided on where we move with next step forwards from those national directors of those programs.
What are some of the biggest challenges that NAACP is facing right now?
The big challenge now is that the introduction of DEI has caused a lot of need to have more litigation against things that has occurred. And the National is doing it at a wonderful pace and rate, but that we also need people to collaborate with us, because we are an organization proud of our 116 years, but it takes all of us to implement positive change, not just one organization.
And being that this convention, this national convention, in our state, right here in Charlotte. What does that mean for this entire state?
I think it's wonderful. It's been almost 30 years since there's been a convention in the state of North Carolina, which was in Charlotte at that time. Given that the governor has just vetoed a few bills that would be detrimental recently, I think it rejuvenates those North Carolinians, and they're coming from near and far to Charlotte. They're walking on walkers, youth, old, young, they're coming.
And President Donald Trump was not invited to the conference, the national convention. Can you talk about that?
That was done, yes. He was not invited by the president, and I was not here at that time because I was in the federal voter redistricting trial that started that same day in Winston-Salem. Can't be in two places at one time.
Do you think he should have been invited?
The president has made that decision, so we will abide by the decision made by the president.
Any final thoughts, any closing remarks just about the importance of this? You know, you've been, how many years have you been coming to this convention?
Over 10 to 15 years.
So when you come every year, what does it mean to you?
I get rejuvenated. I meet people from around the country. I just saw someone from my hometown who lives in another state. It gives you fuel. It rejuvenates you to go back home and continue to fight. Because the fight will never stop, but it can be a lot better in this state and across the country. So North Carolinians, come on down to Charlotte. Come see the hub. Come see the things that are available, because the NAACP is here for the first time in a long time, and it will be another long time before they come back with a national convention. So don't call me next week and say, oh, I wish I'd known. I'm telling everyone, come to Charlotte. All roads lead to Charlotte if you believe in justice and you believe in freedom.
My final question, what are your thoughts just about the recent bill that passed, the Big Beautiful Bill? You know, what kind of impact is that going to have in our community?
That big ugly bill is going to have a negative impact in our community, but it was strategically placed where a lot of those impacts will not happen until after the midterm elections. So people will be lulled into a sense of complacency that no, it's not going to happen. So my job is to educate and make sure everyone understands that before they go to the ballot box. Yes, you will be impacted. But sometimes until it really happens to you, people don't recognize the urgency of now.
And you mentioned the title of the convention, you said is the urgency of now.
The fierce urgency of now.
Can you maybe in a nutshell touch on what does that mean to you when you think about the title of the convention, and what's the big takeaway?
There's an urgency for us to make sure that we take care of ourselves, to make sure that we are acting upon things at this time, in this space and in this place.
Okay, anything else you want to say or add? Anything you think I'm leaving out? Final thoughts?
Come and see what is occurring throughout the NAACP. Come down to the Charlotte Convention Center.
And I promise this is my last question. I do have one last question. President Donald Trump, if he does say something or comments on this convention, which he's already made comments in the past, how will NAACP handle that? Or
It will come through President Derek Johnson, because he is the voice for this state, for the national, on national levels. Then once he makes his determination, we will support that.
All right, so that was a very good interview with Siobhan Riley did with North Carolina NAACP President Deborah Maxwell, talking about the NAACP's national convention that's in Charlotte. It will be in Charlotte at the Charlotte Convention Center from Saturday. It runs to July 16th. So many people are going to be here in town. It's a huge deal. All right, so we want to check in on the forecast now. Here's meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Yesterday, of course, we had big time storms, a lot of localized flooding, but still the worst of it was to our east and northeast across here in the Charlotte area. But today, rinse repeat potential. I do want to point out that the storms will not be as heavy. We won't see as widespread activity, but there still is plenty of moisture in the atmosphere to see heavy pockets at times. One thing that's saving us is if you've looked outside at all yet today, even if the sun's starting to peek through the clouds in a few spots, we primarily have seen a really cloudy start. That is going to help limit some instability. So that doesn't mean we don't have enough moisture for rain, but it does mean a lesser risk for things like damaging wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour. So just something to keep in mind. This time yesterday, we were already peaking in the 90s, whereas most spots across the Charlotte area have only touched the lower 80s. Your excessive rainfall outlook does get a little bit better both Friday and Saturday, but we're still under a medium risk for today. So that's one of the reasons why we're still encouraging folks to stay weather alert across the region. Today's window of opportunity, I think, is mostly between 4 and 9. Now, this does not mean that we couldn't have a few isolated pockets of storms, especially in the mountains and foothills before 4, but this will be your primary threat. Enough moisture developing, allowing for that best chance for localized flooding. In fact, across the metro, the Charlotte area, I think around 5 and 6 is your kind of bullseye there, which is not the best time, as that's when many folks are heading home from work at that time frame. So especially keeping an eye on the roads this afternoon. Of course, I'll actually be in at 4 o'clock doing that right here on WCNC Charlotte with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Of course, focus on the forecast. So other than flooding, we have localized lightning, a ton of lightning strikes yesterday, and of course that very low risk of isolated downbursts. So let's look at futurecast. Here's 4 o'clock. We're starting to see some of those storms pop off. Again, notice how they get a little bit more widespread and kind of clustered together around 5 and 6, eventually pushing to our south by 9. So I don't think that these storms are going to linger as late as what we had yesterday. Now, Friday's forecast, a little bit drier than where we were today. Of course, today is drier than yesterday, and that trend does look to continue heading into the weekend. Doesn't mean we won't see some scattered storms. We're just not looking at a significant widespread risk for storm activity. So again, look at 2 o'clock Friday. Notice just a few spritz and sprinkles here and there. Yes, there will be some downpours, but nothing too significant. And then we will once again see that same impact there both Saturday and Sunday. I would say 30%, if not less, for probably all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Storm impacts for today, we're still put in the same order. So notice this is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Still looking at the same order with flooding number 1, lightning number 2, and winds number 3. It's just that today is probably the last day that we see this higher risk. I will expect that tomorrow's storm impacts overall will be lower across the board, but we're still looking at the same order, and that's why I wanted to show you this particular map. Flooding is still number 1, lightning still number 2, gusty winds still number 3. And one of the things that we get sometimes with a lot of heavy rain is the downbursts themselves are not caused by evaporative cooling, which is cold air in the middle of the atmosphere, but it's actually caused by the heavy rain essentially shoving the winds right closer to the ground. We had some reports of that around 40 to 45 miles an hour yesterday, which is just below severe storm criteria, but still can certainly cause some isolated, trees to come down, things of that nature. Futurecast rainfall showing feast or famine. I want people to remember that this is guidance, not gospel, so it doesn't necessarily mean that Monroe will see almost twice as or over twice as much rain as Charlotte. It just shows you that in general, pockets of heavy rain can lead to quick localized flooding. Tonight in the night sky, a lot of cloud cover is going to limit the appearance there of the full moon. Still locally under a flood watch only for Stanley, Anson, and Richmond counties. As we look ahead to the weekend, again, still keeping rain chances relatively low, but heat and humidity is going to return with feels like temperatures hovering near the triple digits both Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast.
And that is meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. She'll be back in about 20 minutes. She'll be back giving us another update on the forecast. We are weather alert, potential storms. Also, beginning of the week, think about it, it was really hot, humid today, but again, potential storms, potential flooding, some of the same risks that we had
Did you walk
yesterday.
outside during our little...
I did. Actually, I thought it felt better. I think for me, it's just the heat that gets me. I know the humidity is a big part, but because we didn't have sun really outside, or it didn't really bother me.
So it doesn't take it out of you completely.
No. I can kind of deal with the humidity. It's just when that sun comes down. I love the sun, but like when
it's a lot. It can be a lot.
It's a lot. So, did you take a walk today?
I didn't. That's why I had to ask you, because I had to stay inside. And I don't even have a window in here. I don't even know what it looks like outside.
Well, I wish we did have a window somewhere around here. All right, so let's go to something live. Let's go back to Houston, Texas. The NASA crew, SpaceX crew, holding a press conference. So we were there earlier. So we're back. They're having another.
This is the crew, because earlier they were doing like a mission overview.
Oh, okay.
And then this is the crew.
So this is the actual crew.
Yes.
Okay, let's listen in. This is Houston, Texas.
We'll do a lot of useful and necessary work on ISS, and a lot of useful research. And also, I'd like to say thank you, my crewmates, for everything. You helped me every time. And also, I really appreciate my instructors in NASA, in Russia, my teachers who gave me knowledge, who gave me skills, and I'm very excited to see us in space as soon as possible and on time.
Ura.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for those opening remarks. We're going to go ahead and take some questions here in the room. When you ask your question, please state your name and media affiliation. Do we have questions here in the room?
Hi, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. Good to see you all today. Maybe just going down the row, can you talk about some of the personal effects that you're going to be bringing with you on station, and the reason that you've chosen them, given that you have a limited capability to bring personal effects? Thanks.
Yeah, for me, many of the things that I'm bringing are photographs, whether that's photos of people who are meaningful to me, family members and friends, or photographs that we're carrying for our team members. Just as Oleg said in his introduction, our training team and our instructors and the flight controllers who keep us safe while we fly are so important to this mission. I am also in the interesting position of having a lot of my stuff on ISS already from my previous training with Crew 9. My father passed away about a year ago, and I'm very much looking forward to reuniting with some cards that he sent.
As for me, I mentioned earlier that we're a whole bunch of milestones coming up. I've been married to my beautiful wife for 25 and a half years, and what I'm bringing up is she is of Indian origin, and her part of India, from the state of Assam, we wear gamosas, which is like a silk scarf, and I brought one on my previous three missions, and so I'm going to bring another one. It's so knowing I'll carry the blessings of the Indian side of my family.
For me, just like Dina-san, I am actually bringing a lot of pictures. Yeah, of course, my family members and also my friends and also my colleagues, and I'm really looking forward to take some pictures from space, and give it back to the important people for me. Thank you.
I also took with me a few pictures, photos, and a couple toys for my children, and something special, and only things which will remind me about Earth, my family, and about my background.
I'm bringing pictures of Oleg.
Thank you, Michael.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Mark Carrohus, Aviation Week in Space Technology. I believe this is for Mike. You've, among your crew, flown the most on the space station, and you'll be aboard when you reach the 25th anniversary of Constant Crew. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, when you started.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant, time 2:13. Again, thank you for staying with us here on Live Impact News. A busy day. We'll shift over to Washington, D.C. Well, right now, the State Department briefing just got underway. Just want to give you an update from the Trump administration. So The administration has resumed sending some weapons to Ukraine a week after the Pentagon had directed that some deliveries be paused. That's according to U.S. officials on Wednesday. So again, that's some of the latest updates internationally when it comes to the Trump administration. Again, this is State Department briefing. That is Tammy Bruce, spokesperson for the State Department, speaking. Let's take a listen in.
Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese for her abuse of her role. And in recent weeks, she also targeted U.S. companies in an unacceptable campaign of political and economic warfare. The United States will take whatever actions we deem necessary and appropriate to protect our sovereignty, Israel, and any other U.S. ally from illegitimate actions by the ICC. In parallel, the department is announcing a new awareness campaign warning Americans, especially Iranian Americans, about the continuing severe risks of travel to Iran. The Iranian regime does not recognize dual nationality and routinely denies consular services to detained U.S. citizens. And while the bombing has stopped, that does not mean that it is safe to travel to Iran. It is not. We are also launching a new website dedicated to warning Americans against travel to Iran. And there you have it. You can get that website starting at state.gov/do not travel to Iran. That's do hyphen, not hyphen, travel hyphen to hyphen Iran. But I think if you go to state.gov, you do a search, you will find that quite easily. The message is clear, as you can tell, in multiple languages. Our travel advisories are there as well. They remain in place. And we cannot stress enough, as we continue to do, as I have multiple times from this podium, do not travel to Iran, especially those of you who are the dual citizens, who have Iranian heritage. It is not safe for anyone to travel to Iran. And again, this supplements also the existing travel advisories. It does not supplant them at travel.state.gov. Our message is clear. I think so. And finally, as many of you would know, the department is also undertaking a historic reorganization, as announced by Secretary Rubio on April 22nd, to better align workforce activities and programs with the America First foreign policy priorities. The Supreme Court's recent near-unanimous decision allows the reorganization to commence and will ensure that the department moves at the speed of relevancy and restores the department to its roots of results-driven democracy. The plan, which has been approved by the Secretary and developed with extensive feedback from Congress and the workforce itself, is moving into implementation. I do also want to make a note here, as my experience at the State Department now moves into its 6th month, the remarkable experience, the life-changing experience I've had getting to know the people who work in this building. There are tens of thousands of them, and they are at the heart, whether they be political appointees, foreign service officers, or career individuals, people who have made their career, their service for this country, something that has been a part of their lives for a long time. It has been a remarkable experience to see how this building works, how the people work together moving forward to promote and to implement American foreign policy through the commitment and their patriotism. I have to say that in the midst of all of this, it's been, again, very transparent. I've been proud of that, coming from the leadership of this building, as we've discussed this many times. And now this is the point where it begins. And all of us understand, and it's sometimes difficult, as any enterprise in America has learned, that when change is necessary. But in this case, we've inherited a dynamic that needed reform, and we are taking and implementing reform. And of course, in the midst of this, know that the people who've committed to the State Department and to diplomacy, that they know also this is not about them. This is about making sure that the State Department is able to operate in a manner that makes it relevant and effective. That is what the American people want. It's what all of us want. And in this dynamic, that's exactly what we're achieving. So it is, it's been a long road. Every day is one that I'm very proud of working here. And of course, every briefing I'm proud of. It's always very different, the briefings. But we will start now with today's briefing as I take your questions. All right. Andrea Mitchell. Yes, ma'am.
Well, before I ask you about Ukraine and the possibility of sanctions and strong support from this department for sanctions, given what the president said about his impatience with Vladimir Putin after the secretary's conversations with Sergei Lavrov.
Yes.
Let me just say that for the workforce, for those who are going to be leaving foreign service as well as civil service, many of whom I and my colleagues have worked with for many, many years, if not decades, to be told that, as you just said, you're going to make it relevant and effective. You're basically saying that they are not relevant or effective.
Well, I'm glad you
thousands of
bring that up, because I think that is, Andrea, it's the antithesis of what I've said. That this is not a matter of the individual being targeted or an individual not being right. This is about being able to be effective due to the size of the organization and to the structure of the organization. This involves, as you all receive material and a new org chart and all these other kinds of wonky things, that this is about an entity that has grown unsustainable over the years with elements related to the Cold War and other elements that we have moved beyond but still stayed. An aspect that you have a size and people working on things that are not within the framework of the modern age or of what we want to accomplish, and certainly the decision that the American people made last year, that Donald Trump's vision about what the world should be in the context of how America can be great again and what we can contribute as Americans, that when something is too large to operate, too bureaucratic to actually function and to deliver projects or action, it has to change. And it's not the fault of the people who were misled effectively by certain administrations that grew this department into being irrelevant. We must be able to contribute to a world that we've seen in the modern age can destroy everyone's lives. Our department, the State Department, can make the difference with diplomacy, and Donald Trump is the highlight of that. So I will repeat, as I said, this is not a statement about the individuals who are affected in this building. It is a statement about a structure that needs to adapt, that must be smaller in order for us to be relevant, but even more than relevant, effective, quick. We've seen, even just in these past 5 months, how quickly things can change and what can happen when you move at the speed of relevancy. So no, I would, and it's unfortunate, Andrea, that you would take that point and move that point, because nothing could be further from the truth. And it's exciting for the people who are here and the people who've committed their years to the State Department to be able to watch it become even more powerful through diplomacy and making the world safer again and better again and healthier again. They can be proud of that because they've contributed to that, and we're determined to make sure we continue it as well. All right.
Well,
yeah. Well,
you
have a question about? Yes.
I had
go
a
ahead.
question about the importance of sanctions right now at this pivotal moment for Ukraine, given the president's stated impatience with what he saw as misleading understandings,
of course,
from the Russian president.
Well, the Secretary made some comments earlier today in Malaysia, and in part he said, our strategy is to continue to engage all the parties that are involved in finding an outcome to this conflict. I echoed to Lavrov what the President said, both the disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress in peace talks or in a path forward. We hope that that can change, and we're going to stay involved where we see opportunities to make a difference. He also said that the Russians shared some ideas that he said he would take back to the president. And of course, we will see what he says. The president is the guiding hand of these kinds of decisions. And other than that, of course, this is a meeting involved with diplomatic discussions, which I will not get into the details with. All right, Humaira.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you.
Sure.
Just to quickly go back to the reorganization, you said it's moving into the implementation phase. Can you say when the first RIF notices will go out? Is it tomorrow? And apparently the judge wanted to see the RIF plans. That was a demand from the court yesterday. Is that going to slow down the sending of the RIF notices?
First, of course, I won't comment on anything that's moving through the legal system or the requests of the legal system. And also, I will not, other than saying that the Supreme Court decision is allowed us to commence, and that's what we're doing. But I think it's fair to say that with everything else that happens here, it will happen quickly. This is not going to be an extended wait for people who are listening and watching in this building or fellow Americans at home and around the world. This will happen quickly. We understand that there has been a delay, not to our interests, but because of the courts. It's been difficult when you know you need to get something done for the benefit of everyone. So it will be quickly. I cannot give you the timing, and again, won't discuss any legal aspects that may have arisen as well.
Okay, two quick things.
Yes,
one is on Russia, and the other one is about Steve Witkoff. Follow up to Andrea's question. Are you able to tell us at all about this? What's new about these ideas or comments that is going to open a path for peace, which the administration has been trying to do?
Well, what the Secretary said was that he would bring the new ideas to the President. We didn't say that they were going to open a path for peace. So don't read into the nature.
What you guys are trying to do,
and that is in the process of the diplomacy that the Secretary undertakes, that he's in a conversation with Lavrov as an example, conversations the President would have with Zelensky, the President of Ukraine as an example. These are things that are important to realize. They're not static events that stand on their own. They are part of a fluid dynamic of conversations and negotiations. We are, as the President has said and the Secretary has said and engaged in, we'll speak with everyone, because every step makes a difference in the decision that you have to make in the end, and that's where we're at.
The final thing is an Israeli airstrike hit Palestinians near a medical center in Gaza today. It killed 10 children and 6 adults. I'm wondering if there's been any outreach from the U.S. government to the Israeli authorities to take any steps to ensure civilians aren't killed in this.
Well, I can't speak to that particular event. I would direct you to the country of Israel for answers in that regard. But we have said repeatedly that we decry the death of innocents. It's why we do what we do in so many countries around the world. It's part of what informs our action. And at the same time, we know that it's a war, and we stand by Israel, to say the least. And we also know that Israel, when it is due, investigates, and we will wait to see what their action will be, and we'll keep you up to date, obviously. Yes, Jen.
Can I follow up on that, Tammy?
Sure.
There used to be mechanisms in this building to look into incidents of civilian harm using U.S. weapons. Do those mechanisms still exist, and have you come to any conclusions with regard to Gaza?
Well, I can tell you again that the choices that we're going to make diplomatically in reaction to another country's actions or the nature of what's happening around the world, I won't discuss at this podium, or what our process is. But I can tell you that what I've experienced, and I think what all of you have seen over the years, is that we have mechanisms like that because we care about those issues. We have a constant communication with our allies around the world, and that is also something that we see benefiting the agenda of the President and the work of the Secretary of State. So clearly, we care about these issues. We're acting on them actively every day, and that will be one. Obviously, I can update you on that, I'm sure, as we move forward.
And then quickly on GHF, my colleagues and I reported that there were a number of internal concerns about funding GHF that were raised prior to the approval. Can you say whether the Secretary was aware of those concerns and why that approval was granted despite these?
Well, yeah, I know we've had that conversation before. First of all, I can give you an update. There's now 69 million meals that have been distributed to date at 4 distribution centers, all while preventing Hamas looting, which is, of course, an incredible feat. It should be commended and supported. I think most of us do. We also call on other aid agencies and the UN to participate in this system. It has been implemented and it works. And of course, this is part of the creative solutions that the President has asked for regarding that region. When it comes to the activity that is happening or allegations that are made or the framework of what we're trying to achieve, I think that we're looking at a dynamic where it is a war zone. It's the same issues that we've been discussing about the task of getting humanitarian aid to people who need it. The world has clamored for this, and it's happening. And I think at this point, when we look at the nature of the number of meals that have been delivered and the efforts that have to be taken to save those lives, it is to be commended. It's not, certainly nothing will be perfect. I've said this before, that it can't be perfect because it is an unnatural, obscene environment. And for people looking for perfection in a war zone like that, being terrorized by terrorists, to demand perfection or a new normal of this environment is unacceptable. Nothing will be enough. And so that's why we've got to have a solution and an end, a durable ceasefire and a durable peace, because otherwise the suffering and the carnage continues, and that's what we're working to end. All right. Yes, Alex.
Thank you very much. I want to go back to Ukraine, press a little bit more, if I may. You said the Secretary will inform the President about the new ideas. At what point do you guys are planning to inform the Ukrainians?
I'm sorry, what are we?
The Ukrainians. I mean, they are in the talk. So
Obviously, I'm not going to speak about every conversation or connection we have with partners that we're working with every day, all the time. The communications don't just happen when you hear about it in the news or if there's one phone call that's talked.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We are at the bottom of the hour, 2:30. Again, so right now you're watching live in D.C. That is spokesperson Tammy Bruce for the State Department discussing a variety of issues involving the Trump administration. Below, right beside that, on the bottom right, you were tracking your forecast. We are weather alert. We're going to hear from meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees shortly. Above that, top right, NASA SpaceX Dragon crew speaking in Houston, Texas. We're actually hearing from the crew this time. I got it right. We're hearing from the crew. We brought you there live moments ago. So that's happening live in Houston, Texas. All right, so we want to come back home. So earlier we heard from Governor Josh Stein because there was a lot of excitement. North Carolina has been recognized as a top state for business. That's coming from CNBC. The announcement actually marking the third time in the last 4 years that the state has earned the ranking. We have Walker Lawson here who is following the story. Walker, a lot of folks are excited. We were excited in the morning editorial meeting about this ranking.
Yeah, even Governor Josh Stein excited. He started out today by saying we were first in flight, and today we're first in business. Okay. So a lot of excitement across North Carolina. Of course, this was a ranking of all 50 states across 10 different categories. So you're looking at workforce, business friendliness, and economy. Now, this isn't really that shocking, I feel like, because this is the second year in a row. Obviously, in the last 2 days, we've had major business announcements in the city itself with the Citigroup announcement of their efforts to bring about 510 jobs. They're investing $16.1 million in a new office, and then of course asset market as well. But then we've also had big announcements across the state recently with Amazon's announcement, and then the other one with the Jet Zero plant in Greensboro. So we already have seen a lot of excitement in the economy here, so not too shocking, I feel like, for the state.
I was about to say, I feel like every other day there is, and this is a good thing, there's a jobs announcement here in North Carolina, all over the state.
Absolutely.
Anything that stuck out or surprised you from this report?
Yeah, so what actually surprised me is quality of life. That was our worst ranking.
Really?
We ranked 29th. I don't know. I feel like we have great quality.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like a lot of people move here and don't leave here.
Right.
I have a lot of my friends are from Ohio, a lot of friends from New York. So I feel like a lot of families that I know move here for work and then don't leave. So I am a little surprised. I don't know who they asked for quality of life. It wasn't me. But I feel like that is a strong suit. And of course, when we spoke to leaders today, I spoke to a Charlotte councilman that we hear from tonight. and other people, but they said it's no surprise for North Carolina. We have big ports. You have Wilmington. We have close access to Charleston and Savannah. Obviously, Charlotte ranked number 6 in airports. So for Charlotte Douglas, obviously the efforts to try to expand rail. So there's just a lot of infrastructure is a big thing too for businesses that want to come. But there's also a lot of rural parts in North Carolina where they can look to build factories and places like that. So North Carolina kind of has it all. Apparently not quality of life since we ranked 29th, but still doing good across the board to be number 1.
Okay, so you spoke to a council member. Did they react to the quality of life? I know the story is top ranking, but that is kind of shocking, though.
He said that quality of life is, of course, something that he feels like Charlotte has because a lot of people are coming here. Obviously, we see it. We're having around 100 plus people move here daily. Of course, that's not only just the city, but the state is seeing growth. So I think a lot of people were surprised quality of life was so low, but maybe next year.
I think maybe they moved here during this summer where it's been really, really hot. So
where it's been raining every afternoon.
There you go.
Has a lot to say about that shortly, but storms and heat.
When can folks check out your story?
Tonight at 6.
Tonight at 6.
6:15 to be exact.
You don't want to miss that very interesting report. Walker, thank you for your time, man.
Of course, thank you for having me.
All right, quality of life. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Carmen, what do you think about that? I want to get your feedback.
I think I have a pretty good life here.
I think so too. I'm comfortable. I mean,
I'm comfortable.
It's hot.
We're from here though.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, Walker, it's Huntersville. So there you go. Yeah.
I mean, I'm from South Carolina. But,
Carolinas.
The Carolinas.
We get it. We get it.
Yeah.
So
we're a little biased.
It's interesting. I'm like scrolling through. I got a chance to go through the report and some of the reaction that we've gotten.
It's like every other day you hear about like Volvo or another Amazon facility, or there's a bunch of big, not even just national names, international companies that are coming here.
Industry loves the Carolinas.
Right.
I mean, that's just proof is in the pudding. Congratulations to North Carolina.
Congrats
this is
to
the
us.
state that we're in. I know we being a Charlotte station, we represent North Carolina and South Carolina. Right. So again, we want to, that's huge for the state of North Carolina.
South Carolina did 18, so it's not too shabby.
It's not too shabby at all. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
All right. I guess let's talk about some weather.
Sure.
Hey, Brittany, how are you doing, Brittany? She's not on the mic right now, but
she's waiting in the wings.
Waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's fine. We're ready for you, Brittany.
She's taking her time.
It's fine. No, Brittany's been busy. We are weather alert. We've been weather alert since yesterday. Days are kind of blending together at this point because we do have the potential for storms, for flooding, and look. We want to keep you. The overall theme here, we want to keep you safe, and we want to make sure you have the right information. We want to make sure that you know what to expect and be prepared. Thank you, Carlene.
Thanks to Brittany, now I have the right setting on my phone.
She walked us through that. Was that yesterday?
Yes. Yeah.
Man, Brittany, she walked us through that.
The wheel alerts.
We talked about lightning safety.
Yep.
Earlier, Brittany just does it all.
Yeah.
Brittany. Hey, Brittany.
Hey. I'm still getting logged in.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Me and Nick can There's so many things happening right now.
Before we get to Brittany, Carlene, we usually do our thing where before the show we go outside, just kind of get a feel of what's happening.
Yes.
Outside.
I didn't do that today.
We're no meteorologists.
No.
We just
feel we run on vibes.
Yeah, right. And so. It is muggy outside, but I thought it was
muggy.
I could deal with that.
I can deal with muggy if it. Yeah, I can deal with muggy.
Yeah, I could deal with that. And the sun wasn't like beaming down. I love the sun. Trust me, I love being outside. I love the sun. But sometimes it's
a lot
hot because it was so hot this week.
Right.
I know Chris did a whole weather IQ about hey, your thermometer in your car is not like the most reliable.
Right. Mine's all over the place.
I saw triple digits on mine.
Mine's all over the place.
I was like,
it gets better as you drive.
Okay.
Yeah, it does get better. Yeah, it gets better as I drive. But my bug is all over the place.
That steering wheel too.
Yep.
Fresh in the sun after you've been in work for 8+ hours.
I need to get a visor for my.
I do. So I keep seeing on the TikTok shop.
Do you have one?
I don't.
I don't either. Jane has one.
Jane has one?
Jane told me she does the visor.
Yeah.
And then she has a towel for her, like, the sides and on the steering wheel, so she makes sure that it is not hot. Like, it's Jane. You're laughing.
Jane also
Showing
has.
his face.
She
He's
also has
laughing.
gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's extra.
She's like, yeah, she wants to make sure.
She has leather gloves that she
That-
puts on.
that
with
truck
the
bed
fingers,
is cool.
With the fingers cut out,
Yep.
and she grips the steering wheel, and she puts the shades on, and she speeds out of the parking lot.
She pulls out in a cool car.
That's what Jane does.
Yep.
Jane, we love you here.
Yep.
I'm sorry if we're exposing, you know.
You're happy? No, it's a good.
your
I mean, we're getting into hot cars, so maybe she's onto something.
I'm
you
gonna
know?
get some leather gloves with the fingers cut off like Jane.
You get driving gloves.
Driving gloves. I'm just saying.
Driving gloves are kind of baller. I'm not gonna lie. You know, like driving moccasins, like
Right.
give it a whole get up.
Give me the whole get up. Brittany, what do you think about that?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay. All right.
What's wrong with driving gloves?
I feel like I would be so uncomfortable. Ugh, I don't want something in my hands. No.
All right, Britt, how are we looking outside?
Maybe like heated steering wheel I could get down with.
Yeah.
Like during the
Do you have
winter.
heated seats? Do you have heated
No.
seats?
Yeah. But I rarely use them, even in the
Bougie.
wintertime.
Bougie.
Yeah, no, I do not have heated seats.
I don't have seat heat either. But here we are.
Oh.
We don't need seat heat. It's too hot.
Well.
Bring it back.
All right, Britt, how are we looking outside?
Really not too bad. We are starting to see the sunshine really starting to peek through the clouds. So this is where we'll start to mix in some of that instability that we didn't have earlier. We're actually rain-free still across the Charlotte Metro. We are seeing some storms a little bit further north. So you can see here all of that rain we had just about an hour or so ago is cleared out, but there are some storms starting to develop northern side there of Alexander County, mainly north of the I-64 corridor, State Road 64, and then you can see a few isolated storms as well in the northern tip there of Caldwell County. Love Valley too, northwestern side of Iredell, starting to see some storms bubble up, but a lot of these areas were not under cloud cover that we had earlier, so that's what really has saved us, at least so far, across most of the Charlotte Metro. But more storms, of course, are coming in. We know, we've talked about it a lot. This piece of energy is still going to move across the Charlotte area later on this afternoon. I think your best chance to see isolated storms if you live within the 485 loop, if you live in the Metro, so we're talking York County, Mecklenburg County, Union, Cabarrus, Lincoln, Gaston, southern parts of Iredell. Those would be the spots that are seeing it closer to 5 and 6. Again, that's your best chance to see storms. That doesn't mean that you won't see them outside of that window, but 4 to 9 is the main window, and we're going to see around 5 to 6. Again, your best chance if you're in the Charlotte area specifically. Flooding is number one, especially if you live in a low-lying area that's prone to flooding, or you already had flooding from storms we had over yesterday. And then, of course, over the weekend, we had a lot of significant rain due to Chantal in those areas in eastern North Carolina. They, of course, much more prone to flooding than we are today. Here's that look at Futurecast. Again, you can see those pockets there of heavy rain at times. Good thing is, unlike yesterday, most areas do look to wrap up that rain just after 9 o'clock, so just about 30 minutes or so after sunset. We're mostly dry to kick off Friday morning, and then a few storms possible in the afternoon, but Friday has much less storm coverage than what we have today. Flooding number one risk, lightning number two. Make sure that within a lot of those storms with lightning strikes, you are heading inside. If you see lightning or you hear thunder. And then we are going to watch for some gusty winds at times, especially between the 40 to 45 mile per hour range, which is just below severe criteria. Futurecast rainfall is truthfully feast or famine. Just like yesterday, you could have your best friend living a few miles away, sees nothing, and you could get 1 inch of rain within an hour. It's just the nature of these storms, as they can quickly accumulate rain and moisture and then quickly also dissipate upon themselves. As we get closer to this weekend, we will eventually bring back in the mid 90s, so that will allow for our humidity, because it's staying relatively the same as where we are now. We'll slowly, gradually creep from the mid-90s, where it is now, to the upper 90s, close to 100. Nothing near heat index or heat advisory, that is, criteria, but the heat index could certainly get close to the 100-degree mark this weekend. So I think just a good reminder, because it's been humid, just not as hot the last few days, that we still need to make sure we're keeping a close eye on this. I say that, although Tuesday we were weather alert due to heat, so I guess yesterday was just so long with all the storms that we had. But either way, when you don't see higher risks of storms, that eventually means the heat and humidity is a little bit higher. So
4 to 9.
I see.
4 to 9 today.
Yeah. Oh, I was like 49.
49ers? No, 4 to 9 today.
Yes.
So if your girl's getting her nails done in Fort Mill.
Oh my goodness.
At 4 o'clock, she needs to
Yeah,
skedaddle.
I think they'll be too far northwest at that point.
Perfect.
But you might encounter them on your drive back.
Okay.
And will you be on?
Tell John I said hey.
Yeah, I will.
Will you be on the
Shout out.
6:30 stream?
Shout out to my boy John.
Why? What?
6:30 stream. Okay. Well, Brad. I mean, I just want before I toss your name into
No,
the tease.
yeah, right. No,
I just
I will
want to make sure I get it right. I want to learn in real time with our streaming family. All right. So meteorologist.
Yeah, no. Yesterday was the big day, which
Yeah.
is why we had each other to tag team off of. But no, today I was in at my normal time, so no, I will not.
Well, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich will be here at 6:30.
The most important person. So.
You're important. The whole team is important.
I didn't say. I'm just saying, Brad is Brad.
And Brittany is Brittany.
Brittany's
I'm just
Brittany. Y'all are
saying.
both VIPs.
Look.
If we're the VIPs,
Yeah.
then Brad is the VVIP. The very, very.
Well, you can catch the VVIP at 6:30 on Live Weather Impact Stream. Again, starting at 6:30, right after our 6 o'clock newscast. All right, thank you, Brittany, for your time, and thank you for all your hits today. All right.
You're welcome.
Let's go to D.C. This is the State Department briefing that is underway. We were in it live near the top of the hour. So still speaking, still taking questions from reporter, she being spokesperson Tammy Bruce with the State Department. Let's take a listen in.
Looking at the nature of what's occurring all around the world based on where their region might be. And of course, this region, involving, of course, the Middle East, is very busy. I see them almost every day, and during the briefing days, we sit down and I get briefed by these people, these experts, who watch everything that's happening, who are talking to everyone, who know what's occurring, who know where the policy is moving, who know what the secretary is thinking, or at least what his trajectory might be. I then blend into that with what I know from leadership as I work in this building. So when we say, who cares? The American people care. The State Department cares as a collection of the American people who have committed to this work specifically, which is not easy and does not make anyone rich, because they care about the country and they care about what happens around the world in the relationship of making sure America stays safer, more secure, and more prosperous. That's who cares, and that's who's working on it. Yes, sir, right there behind.
Okay, so,
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Sammy. Just to follow up on Saeed's question as well, is the Office of the U.S. Security Coordinator in Jerusalem still working under General Michael Flynn, I believe? And because recently there were a few reports indicating that there was a visit to Noor Shams refugee camps.
Let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. This is moving into gossip and a report or reports of something. We can save everyone's time because we're moving out of my time. I will not comment on things that you've seen in a paper somewhere or reports of wanting gossip or my speculation. That won't happen. I will have it taken back, your question, in the event there's something we can get to you. But we're going to move on from that. Yes, sir, go ahead. No, we are going on. That was your chance, sir. No, sir, right there.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
On the optimism expressed by the administration on the potential ceasefire in Gaza, and
Yes.
particularly the distribution of humanitarian aid,
Yes.
are there plans in place to stop the firing on Palestinians trying to get that aid?
Well, you know, if we've been demanding for a long time, there's one group there, it's just horrible, that will not stop shooting people or lay down their weapons. Hamas. They could lay down their weapons. There are fewer of them, we will have to admit, since the beginning of this war. And they also won't release the hostages. So part of the ceasefire plan, of course, you have a ceasefire when people stop shooting. So if we're looking at the nature of if there's a plan in that framework, and also, of course, what Secretary Rubio has noted, that there is no place in the future for Hamas. Hamas should not exist. It cannot exist. So in that context, yes, the firing on anyone who is attempting, who's an innocent civilian, who's attempting to get something or just living their lives, the Gazan people have been the first victims of this horror, as they have been controlled for generations by Hamas, by terrorists, by those who don't care about them. So the peace that President Trump wants and Secretary Rubio is working for aims, to say the least, of ending that across the board, no matter who might be doing it, but certainly those who are controlling that framework now and the ones with the weapons, and that would be Hamas. Yes, at the end of the row here.
Anthony Mershak from MTV Lebanon.
All right,
so
welcome
we're
aboard.
asking about
Thank you, sir.
Beirut. Could you please clarify the special envoy Tom Barak recent comment stating that Hezbollah has a political wing? Had the U.S. position changed regarding the distinction between Hezbollah's political and military branches?
I have a few things I can say to you. First of all, our position has not changed. Hezbollah is a designated terrorist organization, and we do not distinguish between its political or armed wings. As Ambassador Barak said while in Beirut, Lebanon must utilize this moment.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to shift away from this to an active situation here near Los Angeles, California. This is, according to NBC, possible ICE activity in Camarillo, California. You see it there, a rather large scene. You see from a distance, I don't know if you can see there, if you squint a little bit, you could see, or you get closer up to the TV, that is yellow tape, and that looks like ICE agents or I should say law enforcement with armor on there out in a parking lot area. It's hard to tell where they really are. Obviously, this is in the Los Angeles, California area. So to be transparent, we're not too familiar with the area, but we're giving you some of the information that we have so far. But again, from what we're hearing from NBC, possible ICE activity there, crime scene, or yellow tape is up there outside of a parking lot. Not sure where they are exactly, but we see folks walking. I can't tell who they are, walking towards a building or a facility there. So that scene, so what we saw was folks there in that parking lot. Also, they're maybe feet away from like a line of people outside, like a standoff,
right,
with what appears to be people and law enforcement.
Forgive us, Nick or I are familiar with Los Angeles,
right? Yeah, so we're
the Los Angeles area, I should say,
and we're learning this and we're seeing this in real time. So I'm trying to describe to you what we are seeing in real time. So it looks like we have two separate. So what we got from NBC, possible ICE activity, but what the helicopter is and the camera is pointing to is two sort of scenes, if I'm making any sense at all. So we have law enforcement here. We have some folks walking towards a building and the parking lot, and just north of this on the street there is a line of folks parallel to law enforcement there. That is a pretty big scene. So just to kind of give you some context, I don't see a lot on KNBC, our NBC affiliate there in Los Angeles, on their website. I'm sure they are still learning and still working to get more information on what is going on. So they have an article up regarding President Trump's immigration record so far. Here's what their website is saying, just to kind of give you some context on this situation. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents last month arrested the most people in at least 5 years, but deportations are still lagging far behind what President Donald Trump has promised, and even behind those in the Obama administration, according to data obtained by NBC News. So there appears to be, according to this article, this discrepancy between arrests and deportations highlights the challenges the Trump administration faces to make good on Trump's Inauguration Day vow to deport, quote, millions and millions immigrants. According to ICE data, its agents arrested roughly 30,000 immigrants last month, the most since monthly data was made publicly available in November 2020. Again, so let's kind of recap what we're seeing right now. So we are seeing a line of folks here on the street. I can't tell if they're holding signs because
or just standing.
We can't tell what they're doing, but they are parallel with what appears to be law enforcement. That's
right.
A pretty decent sized crowd facing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about a dozen, more than a dozen law enforcement officers versus more than a couple of dozen folks there.
Yeah. I just did a quick kind of Google just to see where this is. It's kind of west of Los Angeles and Santa Monica, Malibu, kind of like up the coast. It's almost like halfway between like LA and Santa Barbara, like along the coast. So gives you a little bit of context of where this is in relation to LA. So it's still outside of LA-ish.
And we just got some new information from KNBC, NBC, LA. So federal agents, their headline, federal agents seen on tomato farm in Camarillo.
I mean, it does look like farm
Yeah,
land.
we didn't want to assume, but that's what we got here. So here's what KNBC, NBC4 LA is reporting. A group of federal agents were seen in the farming community of Camarillo. Camarillo, thank you, Jeb. Camarillo Thursday morning, this morning. This happened on, I think I'm saying this right, Howelling Tomato Farm near East 5th Street and Las Pasos Road in Camarillo. All right, so News Chopper 4 was overhead when about a dozen agents appeared to have set up a staging area as they stood behind a skirmish line, keeping onlookers from crossing over to their side. So it looks like, according to the article, those people that you see right there are onlookers, and those agents are making sure that they don't cross whatever line or barrier they have set up at that tomato farm. I know I'm just kind of throwing this out there. Jeb, are you familiar with this area?
Very vaguely.
Okay.
It's a little more rural. It's outside. It's out there.
Okay. So this is, again, ICE activity, federal agents seen on a tomato farm in Camarillo. Okay. There is outside of Los Angeles. You see a pretty decent scene of it. Again, it appears to be onlookers. And again, this tomato farm is near East 5th Street there in that area. And again, we've been on this trying to see if I spot anything else.
Just it's a lot of law enforcement cars.
And when the camera zooms out, you can kind of see how rural this area is. But you see that line of cars there behind that line of people facing parallel with those federal agents. Like
it's holding up stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you couldn't tell if. Well, here's the thing. It's hard to tell if those are the owners of the cars,
right.
like they're parked, or if that is actual traffic, maybe.
You know.
And it's hard to kind of tell what's being obviously because this is a look overhead from a helicopter.
We're trying to get our heads around it, just as y'all are. You know.
We're learning this in real time, and that's the thing here with Live Impact News. We want to take you to the latest breaking news development, even if we don't have all the information.
Correct.
Let me refresh the page. Well, as we learn more, we will continue to update you and continue to try to get you the latest. I'm trying to see if anything else sticks out or I'm seeing anything differently. Carlene, should we give them another update? I know we're weather alert today. Should we give them another update on the forecast?
Sure.
Okay. Just in case we learn anything different between now and because we're approaching the top of the hour. All right, so you see that scene right there. I'm just I know I'm kind of hanging on to this for a little bit, but we're just
trying to see if we get any more updates and
see if anything unusual happens outside of what we've already seen. All right, so let's go to weather. That helicopter is kind of panning off right now. So let's get a check of the forecast with meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Yesterday, of course, we had big time storms, a lot of localized flooding, but still the worst of it was to our east and northeast across here in the Charlotte area. But today, rinse repeat potential. I do want to point out that the storms will not be as heavy. We won't see as widespread activity, but there still is plenty of moisture in the atmosphere to see heavy pockets at times. One thing that's saving us is if you've looked outside at all yet today, even if the sun's starting to peek through the clouds in a few spots, we primarily have seen a really cloudy start. That is going to help limit some instability. So that doesn't mean we don't have enough moisture for rain, but it does mean a lesser risk for things like damaging wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour. So just something to keep in mind. This time yesterday, we were already peaking in the 90s, whereas most spots across the Charlotte area have have only touched the lower 80s. Your excessive rainfall outlook does get a little bit better both Friday and Saturday, but we're still under a medium risk for today. So that's one of the reasons why we're still encouraging folks to stay weather alert across the region. Today's window of opportunity, I think, is mostly between 4 and 9. Now, this does not mean that we couldn't have a few isolated pockets of storms, especially in the mountains and foothills before 4, but this will be your primary threat. Enough moisture developing, allowing for that best chance for localized flooding. In fact, across the metro, the Charlotte area, I think around 5 and 6 is your kind of bullseye there, which is not the best time, as that's when many folks are heading home from work at that time frame. So especially keeping an eye on the roads this afternoon. Of course, I'll actually be in at 4 o'clock doing that right here on WCNC Charlotte with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Of course, focus on the forecast. So other than flooding, we have localized lightning, a ton of lightning strikes yesterday, and of course that very, very low risk of isolated downbursts. So let's look at futurecast. Here's 4 o'clock. We're starting to see some of those storms pop off. Again, notice how they get a little bit more widespread and kind of clustered together on 5 and 6, eventually pushing to our south by 9. So I don't think that these storms are going to linger as late as what we had yesterday. Now, Friday's forecast, a little bit drier than where we were today. Of course, today is drier than yesterday, and that trend does look to continue heading into the weekend. Doesn't mean we won't see some scattered storms. We're just not looking at a significant widespread risk for storm activity. So again, look at 2 o'clock Friday. Notice just a few spritz and sprinkles here and there. Yes, there will be some downpours, but nothing too significant. And then we will once again see that same impact there both Saturday and Sunday. I would say 30%, if not less, for probably all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Storm impacts for today, we're still put in the same order. So notice this is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Still looking at the same order with flooding number 1, lightning number 2, and winds number 3. It's just that today is probably the last day that we see this higher risk. I will expect that tomorrow's storm impacts overall will be lower across the board, but we're still looking at the same order. And that's why I wanted to show you this particular map. Flooding is still number 1, lightning still number 2, gusty winds still number 3. And one of the things that we get sometimes with a lot of heavy rain is the downbursts themselves are not caused by evaporative cooling, which is cold air in the middle of the atmosphere, but it's actually caused by the heavy rain essentially shoving the winds right closer to the ground. We had some reports of that around 40 to 45 miles an hour yesterday, which is just below severe storm criteria, but still can certainly cause some isolated, trees to come down, things of that nature. Futurecast rainfall showing feast or famine. I want people to remember that this is guidance, not gospel, so it doesn't necessarily mean that Monroe will see almost twice as or over twice as much rain as Charlotte. It just shows you that in general, pockets of heavy rain can lead to quick localized flooding. Tonight in the night sky, a lot of cloud cover is going to limit the appearance there of the full moon. Still locally under a flood watch only for Stanley, Anson, and Richmond counties. As we look ahead to the weekend, again, still keeping rain chances relatively low, but heat and humidity is going to return with feels like temperatures hovering near the triple digits both Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast.
Well, good Thursday morning, Thursday evening, everyone. As we go into the evening portion of our news here, we're watching a situation in Hillsborough County right now. This is in relation to some ICE activity. So we'll go to this right now and learn more with you.
Prison. In this event, there was no vacation, and there may not be any probation. They may get locked up for a period of time here in one of our programs. We'll see what the courts decide to do. Any questions about that?
Sure. I don't know enough about online gaming to know if there is a mechanism within the game function itself for parents to lock it down so they can't have interstate or international connections to use it.
No, I can tell you that their parents have apps, and there's a way to monitor any online activity that their children are doing, which would include games. Or they can simply not allow the children those apps and games and monitor what's happening. But do they? No, because what they're thinking is, little Johnny's a pain in the butt, and he's got his device, and he's sitting over here in the corner being quiet. Let's leave him alone. That's what happens. And as a result, he's gaming, he's playing, he's making people mad. Or maybe he is swatting somebody in another state because he didn't like the outcome of a game.
You never want to victim blame, but in the case that your detectives communicated to these parents that they needed to take this device away, first, did they? And secondly, do they face any consequences?
Well, they took the device away on the second event. but not the first event. And
all right, I got to apologize. Sorry about that. I think we misunderstood. But this is about a 15-year-old from Connecticut and a 14-year-old from New York facing charges for allegedly swatting a 12-year-old and his family in Polk County, a county in New York. So the suspects have been extradited. Sorry, this is in Florida, excuse me, in Polk County, and they're facing felony charges. Jeb, just making sure that I get the right states there. Thank you so much. So again, we're getting more information from the sheriff on this. This is a situation we've heard of before, but this is something that is ongoing. So we'll go back to this. Just wanted to give you a little bit more information.
Give our detectives a hard time. Oh, my little darling child wouldn't do that. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, he did. And he's held accountable. But I've got a message for Isaiah Reyes' parents. You need to quit acting like a friend and a defender and start acting like a parent, or this kid's going to have a lot more problems. He's still a young man. There's plenty of time to correct his mischievous behavior, but not cooperating, not holding him accountable, and attacking law enforcement officers who's having to discipline him through the system because you don't at home, you're just a knothead, and you need to be held responsible as well. But at this time, criminally, we don't have any charges against the parents. But it's abundantly clear that they need to take responsibility and raise that young man the right way.
How often do you guys have to deal with these types of swatting calls, and can you quantify or put a number?
Yeah, we could probably get the data for you, but it would not be uncommon to tell you weekly. I mean, it's almost every week. Okay? Anything else? Okay. Channel 10 wanted to know about Timothy Conrad. I want to introduce you to Timothy. He's 59 years of age, and I'm sure you all use his picture since he's not a juvenile. He was on Highway 27 on the side of the road, and he was driving a Dodge Nitro that apparently had car trouble, and he turned on these red and blue lights. Well, our deputies patrolling the area see what looks to be a law enforcement officer on the side of the road, so they stop to back him up and see what's happening. They get there. He's got K9 decals on the car. His lights are activated. They find out he's got a siren in the car. He's got a U.S. Marshal's license plate holder. Now we ask him, hey, are you a deputy U.S. Marshal? Well, 29 years ago, a guy by the name of Frank Booth in Pennsylvania gave me a marshal's badge, and I'm a retired marshal. Retired. Well, you know, kind of semi-retired, I still kind of work. Well, are you a marshal or not? So he starts this kind of thing, and our deputies say to themselves, Self, this is not squaring up. So we contacted our colleagues at the U.S. Marshal Service. They go, we have never heard of this dude. He's never worked for us. So we find that he's imitating a law enforcement officer. Then we find out that the license plate on his vehicle, even though it's registered to him, is not registered to the car it's on. Bad day. Can't do that. You got to go to jail. And in addition to that, if you've got a badge and you've got credentials, and you turn blue lights on, and you tell us you're a law enforcement officer, there's additional charges. Then he said, well, I'm a fugitive recovery person, and he had credentials as a fugitive recovery person. Well, that didn't work so much either. So he went to jail, and we towed his car, and we took his blue lights and red lights as evidence. There you go. Timothy Conrad, you got to experience the criminal justice system from the inside out instead of from the outside in. Okay? Thank you all very much. Have a good day. Keep the people in Texas in your prayers. That's a horrible, horrible event of monumental proportions. And we all who are in the business can tell you that as horrible as that looks on television, it pales in comparison to what it's really like when you were there on the ground with it at the time. Television can't do it just cause. It was a terrible, terrible event. All right. Thank you all very much. It's good to see you all again. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, so some interesting revelations there about a man impersonating a police officer. That was the last case that we just heard from the sheriff there. It seems like Timothy Conrad, who's 59, from Winter Haven, Florida, was impersonating a U.S. Marshal, had also, I guess, some credentials that gave him the warrant, or he thought it gave him the warrant to do some of the actions that he is alleged of doing. So we do want to go to a press conference happening right now. Where is this happening again, Jeb? Florida? This is Atlanta, sorry. Happening in Atlanta. Governor Brian Kemp and First Lady Marty Kemp joining by the family of an Israeli hostage who was held captive in Hamas. They're calling for the release of all the remaining hostages at this time. So we'll go to this now.
And separated family members to reunite. Today, as was mentioned earlier, we are honored by the presence of Eli, David, brother of Evitar, and Matan, Evan's cousin. Thank you both for being with us today, for your courage in sharing your loved one's story. Evitar, like so many others, was an innocent non-combatant who was kidnapped on that horrific day that is now seared in our collective memories, October the 7th. And like the other hostages taken by Hamas in the Gaza Strip, they have been held in dark and horrible dungeons for over 640 days. They have been chained, beaten, starved, dehydrated, and emotionally tortured. Evitar and his good friend Guy were taken together on that terrible day almost 2 years ago, and their families have not rested or been at peace for even a moment ever since. In a show of twisted psychological terror on February 22nd of this year, Hamas brought Evitar and Guy out of the tunnels and made them watch the release of other hostages being returned to their families. The terrorists filmed their reactions, forced them to follow a choreographed script, and then returned them to the dungeons before broadcasting the video to the world. One of the photos that you see beside me is a still shot taken from that Hamas video. You can see yourself how beat down, malnourished, and tortured these two young men are. The other photo that we have today is of Evitar, taken under normal circumstances before the events on October the 7th. You can see the incredible difference between the two images and the horrible toll this ordeal has taken on a life that really had just begun. These are the faces that we are here to remember today, but also in the days to come. We know that just this past week, President Trump hosted Prime Minister Netanyahu in Washington to discuss the hopes and plans for a ceasefire, discussions that continue as we speak. And we're certainly praying that this peace will come quickly and that all the remaining hostages will be returned to their families as part of that negotiated peace, including Evitar. But until that day comes, whenever it comes, I'm here on behalf of all Georgians to say that we will continue to stand with the Jewish people and the state of Israel, now and for as long as it takes to end this war and ensure the safety of all Israelis. That support from well before roughly 1,200 civilians were attacked and killed in the October 7th attacks to this moment has been unwavering, and it will remain so. From the anti-hate crimes and anti-BDS legislation passed under this very gold dome that I had the honor of signing into law, to the roughly $25 million in active Israel bonds owned by the state of Georgia, the creation of the Georgia-Israel Caucus, the law enforcement exchange programs we participate in, the multiple trips members of my administration have taken to meet with the Israeli government and business leaders and so many other measures, real Georgians want you to know that we have your back and that we will have Avatars back, Guy's back, and the backs of all those still held captive by evil men who pursue hatred rather than peace, bitterness rather than purpose. As we pray without ceasing for the safe return of the hostages and for the safe and peaceful Israel, we are reminded of the hopeful words from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. We put our trust in the Lord, Adonai, and that.
All right, we've got an array of things happening at this time. We just want to let you know the things we are keeping our eye on, which is why WCNC Plus is the perfect platform to keep on throughout your day. Obviously, we are joined by Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia right now, talking about the Israeli hostage situation, calling for more of the hostages to be released from Gaza. At the top right of your screen, some interesting comments happening right now around NASA. There's a briefing happening in Houston with some NASA astronauts and Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency in tandem as they're explaining the launch of the International Space Station on the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft within the next couple of weeks. And this comes on the heels, really, yesterday of some huge cuts, some reports that nearly 2,000 jobs could be cut from NASA. Really the gutting of the space program at the federal level. And we've seen Ohio Governor Mike DeWine pushing back, several other businesses in Ohio, because it is such a rich state that deals with aeronautical and space, the program as a whole. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes as things wind down. I know there's been a lot of questions about this, especially at the federal level, where some senators are seemingly standing together and calling for these changes to be replaced. Also having a potential ICE situation in Camarillo, California. Federal agents have been seen at I believe, a tomato farming community in Camarillo. So this is an ongoing situation that we've been actually monitoring for the last hour or so. Nick Sturdivant, as he was here less than 15 minutes ago, he was transitioning and watching this, and now obviously these are the things we have our eyes on. Now we can see this Israeli hostage that's just come to the podium, so I will stop talking and we can hear his words.
Thanks to the wonderful Jewish community of Atlanta and to Or Torah community specifically. Thank you for embracing Aviatar and my family with such warmth and such care. To the Miriam Institute, thank you for your unwavering support from the very beginning. And a special thanks to Benjamin Anthony, who first introduced me to this incredible, incredible community. And finally, to Eden, Barak, Aaron, Governor Camp, First Lady Camp, the governor's team, and everyone behind the scenes, thank you for your dedication and for making this event possible. It's more than 21 months since October 7th, and still this day, this October 7th, this disaster still echoes in my mind like it was yesterday. On October 7th, Aviatar and 3 of his friends went to celebrate, to dance on the Nova Festival near the Gazan border. When the attack started and hundreds of terrorists stormed the festival area, they tried to hide. Aviatar and Guy had that gut feeling that something is wrong and they have to split up. Aviatar and Guy found themselves hiding 300 feet from where Ron and Idan, a boy and a girl, which became a couple just 2 weeks before the festival, were hiding. Ron and Idan were killed a couple of minutes later, and Aviatar and Guy got kidnapped. They were sent to the dungeons of Gaza, and they were broadcasted on the same day for all the world to see, when they're handcuffed, when they're terrified, when they were looking straight into the camera, in one of Hamas's propaganda videos, trying to make us terrified and horrified as well. But since that day, we understood Eviatar is alive, which was a privilege for us, a sad one, but still a privilege. And we decided as family that no matter what, we will fight until Eviatar is home, on his feet, and we have to stay united as family, because when he comes back, we will be there to support him. Since then, we traveled many times across the Atlantic Ocean, trying to make Eviatar's story, making Guy's story as visible as we can. Eviatar and Guy are childhood friends. They know each other since they're 1. They went to the same kindergarten. They grew up together. They both love the same music, love the same TV shows, same sports. They both play guitar brilliantly. And for the last few years, Eviatar and I are playing music every week at my parents'. It became a tradition. I play the piano and he plays the guitar, and it became a special moment every Friday that we are bonding, having fun as brothers, singing. And anytime I manifest Eviatar's return, I'm thinking about those special moments when he plays the guitar and I play the piano. When the released hostages came back on last February, after the hideous video was released, they told us that there is one thing especially that holds them up down there. And for Eviatar, it was same manifestation that I am manifesting. It was so important for him to tell me through the released hostages that he misses playing music with me, like we did every Friday. And knowing that we manifest the same thing, although we are so far away and so disconnected for so long, really brought me into tears of frustration and joy and hope and pain. Everything came together. But I think it reminded me how strong our connection is, our bond is, and how music is something that connects us. It feels like we are in crucial times right now, and hearing on the news that maybe something is going on right now for the hostage families, it's a roller coaster of feelings, of ups and downs, because everything that is happening right now, which is disappointing for us, it's crushing, really. It's crushing, it's devastating. And we went into that roller coaster for many times, and we hope that President Trump, with his government, with Prime Minister Netanyahu, that they all work on a plan that will bring all the hostages, all of them, no separation, not only Eviatar and Guy, but all the hostages, all 50 of them, all these precious souls that are suffering so much right now, will be home, and we will not have to feel this separation again, because I think the Jewish heart has bled enough, and we need to make that stop. So thank you everyone for coming here, and please send your prayers, send your focus, your energy to those who are right now in need. They need our prayers, they need our strength to stay hopeful that they will return home eventually. Because for them, it's the hardest right now. So please, send your prayers to them. And I thank you very much for being here.
Okay, thank you, Eli. And at this point, we'd like to invite the Consul General to the southeast, Anat Sultan Dadon, to say a few words, and then we'll close it out. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone for here. Thank you, Governor and First Lady, for today, but for your long-standing support of Israel, but more than that, support of the human values that we all share. And I think that is the point that is most important, that for 643 days now, 50 hostages remain in brutal captivity. But for those 643 days, their family members, like Eli and Matan, have been busy day and night, going all around the world, using their voices to remind everyone that this has to end, that they have to return. And I think that your embracement of that is a reminder that it is not only the family member's responsibility. It's a responsibility that we all share. This is not only about them, it is about us. We are not right until they are not all home with us. And so thank you, everyone, for being here. And Eli, I wish for you to play music with Aviatar soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. That will conclude our formal program here. Thank you, Governor Kemp, First Lady Marty Kemp, Eli Matan, and Consul General. It was wonderful to be together and to share these thoughts. And Eli will be here afterwards to continue to answer questions and to spend some time together. And we appreciate everybody being here. There are flyers on your seats. If anyone would like to learn more, there is a QR code that you can follow. And please continue to raise your voices until all of our hostages are returned. Thank you so much.
All right. The Georgia governor also, as you heard, calling for the release of these Israeli hostages, hearing from one of the former hostages as well, wrapping up that press conference. We'll go now back to NASA. Some interesting revelations happening right now, so we'll listen in with you and send you to it now.
8 years, serving the people of Mississippi and all Americans. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I also thank President Trump for the incredible honor of this nomination to be a commissioner at the Federal Communications Commission. And last but not least, I thank my family for their love and support, and I'll briefly introduce those here today and watching via webcast. My parents, Terry and Ellen Trusty, my sisters, Lauren, Jennifer, Angela, Elizabeth, and Caroline, and my brother, TJ, my brothers and sister-in-law, Thomas Ventimiglia, Matthew Burton, Sola Fafita, and Naeem Trusty, and my precious nieces and nephews, Sophia, Thomas, and Julian Ventimiglia, Ella, Jack, Caroline Kay, and Henry Burton, and Isabel, Summer, Ellen, and Lana Trusty. I love you all so very much. Growing up in a large family with 5 sisters and 1 brother, I was taught early on about the value of service. Through my parents' daily actions, they emphasized the importance of helping others, whether through small acts or larger commitments. As I've grown older, I've credited my parents' example to the example set by my paternal and maternal grandfathers, George Preston Trusty Sr. and Ernest DeWitt Powell Jr., both of whom served our country in World War II and the Korean War, respectively. Although my grandfathers came from different backgrounds, they shared a common commitment to defending this country and protecting the values we all hold dear. What brings me here today is my desire to continue the shared commitment to public service and love of country that's been in my family for generations. When I first moved to Washington, D.C. nearly 20 years ago, after graduating from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, I began my career in the public policy office of a telecommunications company. This is where I was introduced to universal service principles and the critical mission of the FCC. During that time, I saw firsthand how access to modern communication services, particularly for Americans living in rural and remote areas, could change lives. I also learned the value of a simple internet connection. It not only gives communities the ability to stay connected with loved ones, but it opens the door to education, jobs, economic opportunities, and so much more. Indeed, it allows Americans to participate fully in society and an ever-expanding global digital economy. Following my time in the private sector, I've had the opportunity to work in the House of Representatives and in this hallowed chamber on telecommunications, technology, consumer protection, and most recently, national security. All of these policy areas are core to the FCC's mission to make available affordable, high-speed, reliable, and secure communication services. Now, in carrying out this mission, it's not lost on me that the problem set facing the Commission is both vast and diverse. The agency must contend with unforgiving geographic landscapes to achieve universal connectivity. It must stay ahead of sophisticated illegal robocallers, defrauding and scamming vulnerable populations like our youth and seniors. It must work with federal partners to defend the security of our communications networks from the attacks of nation-state actors. And it must work collaboratively with private and public sector interests to ensure that the United States leads the world in next-generation communications. Notwithstanding these issues, given my unique experiences working on both this distinguished committee and the Armed Services Committee, as well as the dedication and expertise of FCC staff, I believe these challenges can be overcome. In that spirit, I'd like to offer a short list of commitments on which I hope there is bipartisan consensus if confirmed. If confirmed, I will work with Congress and the administration to expand access to high-speed internet services for all Americans, protect consumers from illegal robocalls, strengthen the security of the nation's telecommunications networks, and restore America's leadership in next-generation communications technologies. Mr. Chairman, thank you again for holding this hearing, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you to you both. All right, Mr. Isaacman, let's start. If you're confirmed, you will oversee NASA's various field centers, mission directorates, and affiliated activities. This includes Artemis and the Moon to Mars program, which aims to keep us one step ahead of nations like China in the fight for supremacy in space. The threat from China is very real. Just last week, General Saltzman, Chief of Space Operations for the Space Force, testified before the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission that Beijing has been explicit, as recently as October of last year, in stating that China intends to surpass the United States and become the world's preeminent space power. As General Saltzman put it, quote, China's advancement in space technology, their stated desire to dominate, and Beijing's disregard for international norms for the responsible use of space make them an incredible danger to U.S. prosperity and security. China has said that they will put a man on the moon by 2030, and that they will build a permanent lunar base there along with Russia by 2035. Based on how quickly they have already progressed, I think it is quite possible that China reaches those.
All right, we're going to leave this, go to Governor Josh Stein discussing different economic issues, especially with businesses as it relates to some of the things that we've seen small businesses have to get through, some of the challenges of and the hurdles that have been laid before them in recent months. So we'll go to this now.
Today is a great day for North Carolina. We have been first in flight. We are first in business. CNBC recognized the great work that is happening here in North Carolina to grow this economy. We have one of the strongest economies, excellent infrastructure, an incredible quality of life, but it all starts with our people. We have a talented workforce, from the folks working on the line in advanced manufacturing facilities to the scientists and engineers designing new products that change the world. It's all happening here in North Carolina, and we're really proud to be recognized for the great opportunity that exists in North Carolina.
And North Carolina has ranked #1 in business 3 out of the last 4 years. What specific policies, changes, or investments do you believe made the biggest difference this year under your leadership?
It's all about our people. We have such talented people, hardworking people, friendly people. We have to make sure that they have the skills, the knowledge that they need to be competitive in what is an ever-changing economy. We have great public schools. They can be better. We need to pay our teachers more. We have an incredible community college system. We have great universities, public and private. So we really have the ability to offer to businesses everything they need. They can come here and know that they have the scientists and engineers to design their products and the workforce to build them.
Hi, Governor Stein. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
I just was kind of wondering, what role do smaller cities like Wilmington and southeastern North Carolina, what role do they play in the state's broader economic development?
Yeah, we have a lot of different regions that each have their own to offer the state. And Wilmington, the Cape Fear region, is a critical part of North Carolina's economy. We have PPD, Thermo Fisher, we have the film industry, we have the ports, we have tourism. There's a lot that's going on in Wilmington, and you just need to walk down the streets and you will see the dynamism that is here. We have beauty in the western part of the state, and we really need to help those folks recover from Hurricane Helene. By the way, they're open for business just as Wilmington is. If folks are looking for somewhere to go, Western North Carolina, they're open. They want to welcome you with open arms. And then we've got great things happening in the Triangle. Later today, the Children's Hospital is being announced in the Triangle. It's going to be not only to young people's health care, but also to the economy. It's going to start all kinds of medical device development. It's going to be so exciting, the new therapies that are developed. It's going to create thousands of jobs.
And going off of children, child care access remains a major concern for working families. How do you see your task force on child care and early education contributing to North Carolina's economic competitiveness going forward?
Yeah, child care is a major expense for families, and we need to help parents afford the cost of raising their children. I have tax proposals that will do that, put more money into the pockets of parents raising their kids. A child is finding out ways that we can finance child care and raise the pay of workers so that we can attract the best into this field. Estimates are that child care, the lack of child care in North Carolina is costing the economy over $5 billion a year because there are so many people who want to work, but honestly they cannot afford to work. And what we want is for parents to make their own decision. Stay at home with your child or go to work. It should be your decision.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah, Governor Stein, thank you so much for being here today. I got to ask about the flip side of this.
Yeah.
This is from CNBC. They said that North Carolina is unfailingly friendly to business, not so friendly to workers. And they ranked us, you talked about quality of life, they ranked us 29th in quality of life, so bottom half of the states. Why is our economic success not translating into happy workers and quality of life?
Well, I don't understand the metrics they used on the quality of life. All I know is that people who move to North Carolina don't move out of North Carolina. That tells me we have a fantastic quality of life. The natural beauty, the outdoor activities, the culture, there's a lot to offer here in North Carolina. We can do better by our workers by helping them earn a better living. So what we're trying to do is recruit businesses that pay a higher wage. If people have more money in their pocket, they can afford a home. They can take a vacation with their family. They can securely retire. That's the future we want for North Carolina. More good paying jobs, more opportunity, a better quality of life.
I got to say, if you're not going to agree with their rankings for quality of life, why celebrate their rankings for economic success?
Well, what I said was I don't know what metrics they use, so I have to look to see how they came up with their ranking. Look, can things be better? Yes, we're on our toes. We always want North Carolina to be at the top. I wanted to get a perfect score. We did not get a perfect score. So we will constantly ask ourselves, what can we do better? Other states want what we have here in North Carolina. we've got to stay aggressive to make sure we're making the right investments in our people, in our infrastructure, so that we remain on top.
Thank y'all.
All right, and we know summer months sometimes can be a real drag for a lot of businesses, small businesses particularly. So it's good to hear that there's a business boom ongoing, and still, I'm sure tourism is still a need in Western North Carolina as those communities look to recover. We are going to go to our weather package right now with our amazing team of meteorologists discussing what the next couple of 24 hours, 48 hours looks like as we end the work week.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Yesterday, of course, we had big time storms, a lot of localized flooding, but still the worst of it was to our east and northeast across here in the Charlotte area. But today, rinse repeat potential. I do want to point out that the storms will not be as heavy. We won't see as widespread activity, but there still is plenty of moisture in the atmosphere to see heavy pockets at times. One thing that's saving us is if you've looked outside at all yet today, even if the sun's starting to peek through the clouds in a few spots, we primarily have seen a really cloudy start. That is going to help limit some instability. So that doesn't mean we don't have enough moisture for rain, but it does mean a lesser risk for things like damaging wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour. So just something to keep in mind. This time yesterday, we were already peaking in the 90s, whereas most spots across the Charlotte area have only touched the lower 80s. Your excessive rainfall outlook does get a little bit better both Friday and Saturday, but we're still under a medium risk for today. So that's one of the reasons why we're still encouraging folks to stay weather alert across the region. Today's window of opportunity, I think, is mostly between 4 and 9. Now, this does not mean that we couldn't have a few isolated pockets of storms, especially in the mountains and foothills before 4, but this will be your primary threat. Enough moisture developing, allowing for that best chance for localized flooding. In fact, across the metro, the Charlotte area, I think around 5 and 6 is your kind of bullseye there, which is not the best time, as that's when many folks are heading home from work at that time frame. So especially keeping an eye on the roads this afternoon. Of course, I'll actually be in at 4 o'clock doing that right here on WCNC Charlotte with Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Of course, focus on the forecast. So other than flooding, we have localized lightning, a ton of lightning strikes yesterday, and of course that very low risk of isolated downbursts. So let's look at futurecast. Here's 4 o'clock. We're starting to see some of those storms pop off. Again, notice how they get a little bit more widespread and kind of clustered together on 5 and 6, eventually pushing to our south by 9. So I don't think that these storms are going to linger as late as what we had yesterday. Now, Friday's forecast, a little bit drier than where we were today. Of course, today is drier than yesterday, and that trend does look to continue heading into the weekend. Doesn't mean we won't see some scattered storms. We're just not looking at a significant widespread risk for storm activity. So again, look at 2 o'clock Friday. Notice just a few spritz and sprinkles here and there. Yes, there will be some downpours, but nothing too significant. And then we will once again see that same impact there both Saturday and Sunday. I would say 30%, if not less, for probably all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Storm impacts for today, we're still put in the same order. So notice this is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Still looking at the same order with flooding number 1, lightning number 2, and winds number 3. It's just that today is probably the last day that we see this higher risk. I will expect that tomorrow's storm impacts overall will be lower across the board, but we're still looking at the same order. And that's why I wanted to show you this particular map. Flooding is still number 1, lightning still number 2, gusty winds still number 3. And one of the things that we get sometimes with a lot of heavy rain is the downbursts themselves are not caused by evaporative cooling, which is cold air in the middle of the atmosphere, but it's actually caused by the heavy rain essentially shoving the winds right closer to the ground. We had some reports of that around 40 to 45 miles an hour yesterday, which is just below severe storm criteria, but still can certainly cause some isolated, trees to come down, things of that nature. Futurecast rainfall showing feast or famine. I want people to remember that this is guidance, not gospel, so it doesn't necessarily mean that Monroe will see almost twice as or over twice as much rain as Charlotte. It just shows you that in general, pockets of rain can lead to quick localized flooding. Tonight in the night sky, a lot of cloud cover is going to limit the appearance there of the full moon. Still locally under a flood watch only for Stanley, Anson, and Richmond counties. As we look ahead to the weekend, again, still keeping rain chances relatively low, but heat and humidity is going to return with feels like temperatures hovering near the triple digits both Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast.
All right, that's what is ahead. Of course, we'll make sure to keep you weather alert on any of the impacts throughout, obviously, the afternoon. And in fact, we might have one of our meteorologists joining us here in the next couple of minutes. But if not, you can see them on our linear show at 4 o'clock with Nick Sturdivant and Jane Monreal. Let's go to Tammy Bruce at the State Department. We're going to get another briefing from her today.
last night, that storm, that was pretty outrageous. But glad we made it. Thank you all very much for being here. Popular today in the back. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone at home. So yes, we have a few announcements, as you might imagine, and then I'll be ready to take your questions. So good afternoon, everyone. Secretary Rubio is in Kuala Lumpur for the ASEAN-related foreign ministers' meetings and bilateral engagements, reaffirming the United States' commitment, our enduring commitment, if I may add, to a free, open, and secure Indo-Pacific. Earlier today, he participated in the ASEAN-U.S. Post-Ministerial Conference and held meetings with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar and counterparts from Malaysia, Russia, Japan, and the Philippines. As the Secretary has stated, the Indo-Pacific accounts for 2/3 of global growth and remains a central focus of U.S. foreign policy. The Secretary also signed a nuclear cooperation memorandum of understanding with Malaysia, advancing civil nuclear energy collaboration under the highest standards of safety, security, and non-proliferation. Negotiations toward a 1-2-3 agreement are underway, and once finalized, it would permit the transfer of nuclear material and equipment for peaceful purposes, further deepening bilateral energy, security, and economic ties. Tomorrow also marks the 4th anniversary of the Cuban regime's July 11th crackdown. Deputy Secretary Landau met with Cuban democracy and human rights advocates, reaffirming the United States' steadfast support for freedom and democracy in Cuba. Secretary Rubio's video message to the group made clear the Trump administration promotes accountability for the Cuban regime's human rights violations and continues to stand with the Cuban people in their pursuit of freedom and prosperity. Additionally, the United States is imposing sanctions on UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese for her abuse of her role. And in recent weeks, she also targeted U.S. companies in an unacceptable campaign of political and economic warfare. The United States will take whatever actions we deem necessary and appropriate to protect our sovereignty, Israel, and any other U.S. ally from illegitimate actions by the ICC. In parallel, the Department is announcing a new awareness campaign warning Americans, especially Iranian Americans, about the continuing severe risks of travel to Iran. The Iranian regime does not recognize dual nationality and routinely denies consular services to detained U.S. citizens. And while the bombing has stopped, that does not mean that it is safe to travel to Iran. It is not. We are also launching a new website dedicated to warning Americans against travel to Iran. And there you have it. You can get that website starting at state.gov/do not travel to Iran. That's do-not-travel-to-Iran. But I think if you go to state.gov, you do a search, you will find that quite easily. The message is clear, as you can tell, in multiple languages. Our travel advisories are there as well. They remain in place. And we cannot stress enough, as we continue to do, as I have multiple times from this podium, do not travel to Iran, especially those of you who are the dual citizens, who have Iranian heritage. It is not safe for anyone to travel to Iran. And again, this supplements also the existing travel advisories. It does not supplant them at travel.state.gov. Our message is clear. I think so. And finally, as many of you would know, the department is also undertaking a historic reorganization, as announced by Secretary Rubio on April 22nd, to better align workforce activities and programs with the America First foreign policy priorities. The Supreme Court's recent near-unanimous decision allows the reorganization to commence and will ensure that the department moves at the speed of relevancy and restores the department to its roots of results-driven democracy. The plan, which has been approved by the Secretary and developed with extensive feedback from Congress and the workforce itself, is moving into implementation. I do also want to make a note here as my experience at the State Department now moves into its 6th month. The remarkable experience, the life-changing experience I've had getting to know the people who work in this building. There are tens of thousands of them, and they are at the heart, whether they be political appointees, foreign service officers, or career individuals, people who have made their career, their service for this country something that has been a part of their lives for a long time. It has been a remarkable experience to see how this building works, how the people work together moving forward to promote and to implement American foreign policy through the commitment and their patriotism. I have to say that in the midst of all of this, it's been, again, very transparent. I've been proud of that coming from the leadership of this building, as we've discussed this many times. And now this is the point where it begins. All of us understand, and it's sometimes difficult, as any enterprise in America has learned, that when change is necessary. But in this case, we've inherited a dynamic that needed reform, and we are taking and implementing reform. And of course, in the midst of this, know that the people who've committed to the State Department and to diplomacy, that they know also this is not about them. This is about making sure that the State Department is able to operate in a manner that makes it relevant and effective. That is what the American people want. It's what all of us want. And in this dynamic, that's exactly what we're achieving. So it is, it's been a long road. Every day is one that I'm very proud of working here. And of course, every briefing I'm proud of. It's always very different, the briefings. But we will start now with today's briefing as I take your questions. All right. Andrea Mitchell. Yes, ma'am.
Well, before I ask you about Ukraine and the possibility of sanctions and strong support from this department for sanctions, given what the president said about his impatience with Vladimir Putin after the secretary's conversations with Sergei Lavrov.
Yes.
Let me just say that for the workforce, for those who are going to be leaving, foreign service as well as civil service, many of whom I and my colleagues have worked with for many, many years, if not decades, to be told that, as you just said, you're going to make it relevant and effective. You're basically saying that they are not relevant or effective.
Well, I'm glad you
thousands of people
bring that up,
be
because I think
jobs.
that is, Andrea, it's the antithesis of what I've said. That this is not a matter of the individual being targeted or an individual not being right. This is about being able to be effective due to the size of the organization and to the structure of the organization. This involves, as you all receive material and a new org chart and all these other kinds of wonky things, that this is about an entity that has grown unsustainable over the years with elements related to the Cold War and other elements that we have moved beyond but still stayed. An aspect that you have a size and people working on things that are not within the framework of the modern age or of what we want to accomplish, and certainly the decision that the American people made last year, that Donald Trump's vision about what the world should be in the context of how America can be great again and what we can contribute as Americans, that when something is too large to operate, too bureaucratic to actually function and to deliver projects or action, it has to change. And it's not the fault of the people who were misled effectively by certain administrations that grew this department into being irrelevant. We must be able to contribute to a world that we've seen in the modern age can destroy everyone's lives. Our department, the State Department, can make the difference with diplomacy, and Donald Trump is the highlight of that. So I will repeat, as I said, this is not a statement about the individuals who are affected in this building. It is a statement about a structure that needs to adapt, that must be smaller in order for us to be relevant, but even more than relevant, effective, quick. We've seen, even just in these past 5 months, how quickly things can change and what can happen when you move at the speed of relevancy. So no, I would, and it's unfortunate, Andrea, that you would take that point and move that point, because it is Nothing could be further from the truth. And it's exciting for the people who are here and the people who've committed their years to the State Department to be able to watch it become even more powerful through diplomacy and making the world safer again and better again and healthier again. They can be proud of that because they've contributed to that, and we're determined to make sure we continue it as well. All right.
Well,
yeah. Well,
am I able to ask my
you have a question about? Yes.
I have
go
a
ahead.
question about the importance of sanctions right now at this pivotal moment for Ukraine, given the president's stated impatience with what he saw as misleading understandings.
Of course.
From the Russian president.
Well, the Secretary made some comments earlier today in Malaysia, and in part he said, our strategy is to continue to engage all the parties that are involved in finding an outcome to this conflict. I echoed to Lavrov what the President said, both the disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress in peace talks or in a path forward. We hope that that can change, and we're going to stay involved where we see opportunities to make a difference. He also said that the Russians shared some ideas that he said he would take back to the president, and of course we will see what he says. The president is the guiding hand of these kinds of decisions. And other than that, of course, this is a meeting involved with diplomatic discussions, which I will not get into the details with. All right, Humaira.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you.
Sure.
Just to quickly go back to the reorganization, you said it's moving into the implementation phase. Can you say when the first RIF notices will go out? Is it tomorrow? And apparently the judge wanted to see the RIF plans. That was a demand from the court yesterday. Is that going to slow down the sending of the RIF notices?
First, of course, I won't comment on anything that's moving through the legal system or the requests of the legal system. And also, I will not, other than saying that the Supreme Court decision has allowed us to commence. And that's what we're doing. But I think it's fair to say that with everything else that happens here, it will happen quickly. This is not going to be an extended wait for people who are listening and watching in this building or fellow Americans at home and around the world. This will happen quickly. We understand that there has been a delay, not to our interests, but because of the courts. It's been difficult when you know you need to get something done for the benefit of everyone. So it will be quickly. I cannot give you the timing, and again, won't discuss any legal aspects that may have arisen as well.
Okay, two quick things.
Yes,
one is on Russia, and the other one is about Steve Witkoff. Follow up to Andrea's question. Are you able to tell us at all about this? What's new about these ideas or comments that is going to open a path for peace, which the administration has been trying to do?
Well, what the Secretary said was that he would bring the new ideas to the President. We didn't say that they were going to open a path for peace. So don't read into the nature.
What you guys are trying to do,
and that is in the process of the diplomacy that the Secretary undertakes, that he's in a conversation with Lavrov as an example, conversations the President would have with Zelensky, the President of Ukraine as an example. These are things that are important to realize. They're not static events that stand on their own. They are part of a fluid dynamic of conversations and negotiations. We are, as the President has said and the Secretary has said and engaged in, we'll speak with everyone, because every step makes a difference in the decision that you have to make in the end, and that's where we're at.
The final thing is an Israeli airstrike hit Palestinians near a medical center in Gaza today. It killed 10 children and 6 adults. I'm wondering if there's been any outreach from the U.S. government to the Israeli authorities to take any steps to ensure civilians aren't killed in this?
Well, I can't speak to that particular event. I would direct you to the country of Israel for answers in that regard. But we have said repeatedly that we decry the death of innocents. It's why we do what we do in so many countries around the world. It's part of what informs our action. And at the same time, we know that it's a war, and we stand by Israel, to say the least. And we also know that Israel, when it is due, investigates, and we will wait to see what their action will be, and we'll keep you up to date, obviously. Yes. Jen.
Follow up on that, Tammy.
Sure.
There used to be mechanisms in this building to look into incidents of civilian harm using U.S. weapons. Do those mechanisms still exist, and have you come to any conclusions with regard to Gaza?
Well, I can tell you again that the choices that we're going to make diplomatically in reaction to another country's actions or the nature of what's happening around the world, I won't discuss at this podium, or what our process is. But I can tell you that what I've experienced, and I think what all of you have seen over the years, is that we have mechanisms like that because we care about those issues. We have a constant communication with our allies around the world, and that is also something that we see benefiting the agenda of the President and the work of the Secretary of State. So clearly, we care about these issues. We're acting on them actively every day, and that will be one, obviously. I can update you on that, I'm sure, as we move forward.
And then quickly on GHF, my colleagues and I reported that there were a number of internal concerns about funding GHF that were raised prior to the approval. Can you say whether the Secretary was aware of those concerns and why that approval was granted despite these?
Yeah, I know we've had that conversation before. First of all, I can give you an update. There's now 69 million meals that have been distributed to date at 4 distribution centers, all while preventing Hamas looting, which is, of course, an incredible feat. It should be commended and supported. I think most of us do. We also call on other aid agencies and the UN to participate in this system. It has been implemented and it works. And of course, this is part of the creative solutions that the President has asked for regarding that region. When it comes to the activity that is happening, or allegations that are made, or the framework of what we're trying to achieve, I think that we're looking at a dynamic where it is a war zone. It's the same issues that we've been discussing about the task of getting humanitarian aid to people who need it. The world has clamored for this, and it's happening. And I think at this point, when we look at the nature of the number of meals that have been delivered and the efforts that have to be taken to save those lives,